Hello, everyone. The grand finals are finally here. It's the Unified Collegiate Championship Grand Finals. It is NC State taking on Converse. Oh man, this is going to be a fun time. I'm Jonah. I'm your host for today. We've got John Fellow Seach in the building. We've got Carter Links Hannafeld joining us as well. And we've got a
Using
fun
last names now?
day of Siege. Yeah, we're getting creative. We're using all the names. We're having all
Wow.
the fun. Carter, how you feeling?
I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I gave you permission to use my last name, but it's okay. It's
Oh,
whatever.
oh.
No, it's fine. I'm feeling really good, especially after yesterday. Obviously, I've said it many times. I'm kind of the novice of the bunch compared to you two. I was really hoping we wouldn't just have Converse versus Akron because that's a matchup even I am tired of. Obviously, good fight to Akron yesterday, but I'm just excited we have potentially an upset in the making.
John, I know you were not here yesterday, but there was some pretty intense action. I hope you got the chance to tune in because we saw some pretty crazy stuff in the semis.
Oh yeah, I got a chance to watch both best of threes, and I think Mr. Collegiate put it perfectly. I am so glad we get to see a little bit of variety here tonight for the grand finals and a chance to see a really beautiful storyline today for NCSU.
Well, it is exactly. To remind everyone how we've come this far, how we got to this point. We'll pull up our bracket for the final time. You can see the 16-team single elimination bracket that resulted in our finals pairing. It was Converse who worked their way in from the top left of your screen. They took down Kent State. They took down St. Clair. They worked their way through OSU, and they're here in the finals. On the other side, it is NC State. They took down UTSA. They took down Wisconsin, dropping a map both times, but swiftly removing Akron, and here they are in the grand finals. Carter, yesterday, I feel like, even though the OSU loss was a bummer for OSU, it may have been a little bit more expected, but the Akron loss, NC State prevailing, I think that surprised a lot of us.
Oh, certainly. And that's not because NCSU are a bad team by any means. They've always been in that upper echelon of collegiate, but it's just been how strong Akron are and how strong Converse are, and NCSU always being almost there, but then just a couple small mistakes costing them in the end. And it's especially odd that it seemed like, at least in terms of map count, of course, UTSA and Wisconsin providing a little bit tougher of a match, able to take a map off NCSU, and while the Converse game was close, NCSU able to close it out in 2 maps, albeit on the back of some pretty impressive individual plays as well. Still a very, very pleasant sight, I will say.
Yeah, that it was. But an even more pleasant sight, of course, is their opponents, right? Converse have been looking pretty good. They have had, probably the easiest run getting here, not necessarily in terms of their opponents, but in terms of the dominance that they have simply been laying down towards their opponents. Fellow, why don't we get things started? Let's talk about this matchup and let's talk about this Converse team.
Yeah, we've got just the regular stack, the dynasty for Converse, Avian, Locurio, Thunder, Brain Dead Aimer, BDA for sure, and Ice Cold. They have been around the block so many times. They've won almost every single stage for Season 7 of CR6. They made it all the way to the finals here for the regular season of R6CC. They won that against Akron, and now they're looking to take another title, another trophy for the trophy room. It's just what makes sense. They are the top dog. They are the Titan of Collegiate, and like I said, they are just looking to add another one to the tally board at this point, Jonah.
That they are. They have been racking up these victories. Carter, I know we've talked about this a lot. You've seen this team, in the ins and outs just over the last few weeks. And some of these plays from yesterday really just encapsulate how powerful this team is, how much depth this team has.
Oh, very, very much so, and I think it'll be a good contrast to NCSU, because one thing that Converse and Akron as well, but definitely Converse, they're the one that made it to the finals, is always the inclination and the ability to get in their opponent's face, but also do it successfully. Locurio especially, you'd think somebody playing, kind of mute, a more anchor-type operator would maybe feel a little bit more reserved for pushing up or taking aggressive fights, but when push comes to shove, it's players like Locurio that is able to get aggressive, and on top of other players like BDA and Ice Cold, who you expect that from, it makes for an overall roster where you can never really count out a player, even if it's in a 1v3, even if it seems like they're trapped on the site. Nobody is scared on this roster to take fights, and that was what I was most impressed by in Converse's game yesterday.
Right, all day yesterday, even if they were losing out in the opening engagements, even if they were putting a lot of stock into an extension or a roam, if Ohio State dismantled that, Converse just countered them with a ridiculous retake or some ridiculous site denial like you're seeing right now here on Match Point. Converse put together some crazy plays, not only in the early round, but in the late round as well, John.
Yeah, I mean, they've always got a plan B. They're never too worried if something backfires off the bat. They are just a very well-rounded team. They don't have to rely just single-handedly on a last-second execute. They can adapt very quickly on the fly. So for a team like NCSU during this matchup, they have to keep themselves on their toes constantly, or they're going to end up falling short on a lot of potential round wins.
Well, for the first time, actually, we have some stats to take a look at from the last few weeks of play, kind of combining the map stats from the entire Unified Collegiate Championship and the player stats from these last 2 games each team has played. We'll start with Converse. Carter. What stands out to you?
Honestly, what stands out to me, well, obviously the fact that they are undefeated on all the maps they've been to since the round of 16. So that would be the first thing. But also just how dominant the stats are going into this grand finals for their defense and attack win rates. 86% defensive win rate is an insane stat by any metric. And now, to be fair, you know, NCSU maybe has had a little bit tougher of a bracket than Converse did, with really their only major opponent seemingly being OSU, and even that wasn't a particularly close game in some rounds. So Converse, you have to put a little bit of an asterisk on it. They have had maybe some stat padding in there with a lot of 7-0s, but still going into a finals when you're going up against a team where their worst side, they win 3/4 of the rounds they play, that's definitely what stands out the most to me. Just as a team-based game, the fact that that's how often that team can win both these sides.
I mean, no kidding. I mean, team-based, individual-based. You see BDA at the top there with a 2.96 KDA. I mean, honestly, that is simply ridiculous. John, I know this is a team that we've mentioned, you know, has that individual fragging capability a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for me personally, the one thing that really stands out is their lack of diverse map selection. I like how they have at least one of the 3 new maps, that being Border, in their pool, but I can't remember the last time I've seen Converse play on, you know, for example, Cafe or even Theme Park nowadays. So in terms of map bans, when we eventually get there, Jonah, I think that's something to really tie into, and that could be one thing that could give the upper hand for NCSU, because I know they're much more willing to go on those unorthodox maps, especially since we have Border, Theme Park, and Skyscraper now in the pool.
Well, yesterday we got a special treat. We actually got some insight into team comms from their quarterfinal run coming into the semis, but we also have some comms from yesterday's games. First, of course, we'll take a look at some Converse comms. I mean, this stuff is super entertaining. Take a listen.
Yo, one bar hall, a bonfire place sound.
One west main. One west main.
One front door.
Fireplace, you said?
Yeah, in the corner. I don't know.
I'm sorry. One front door dead.
West main dead.
Yo, in bar, in bar, in bar.
Bar. Stick.
It's stick.
Bar down. Done.
Ah, your best retake.
Let's go, baby. Good guys. Holy
I almost killed you.
They're good. You are fine.
You said fireplace. I flicked him with a movement up here, bro.
It was sound.
I don't know where Malusi
She
is.
pushed up.
Hey, Boosie's downstairs. Boosie's downstairs, Bren.
Hold it.
Nice.
Two dead.
Nice.
Oh, on dining table.
Nice. Oh my god. Good. Hallelujah.
Alright, one more map. Wait, there's somewhere else.
No, there's
No, there's bomb spotted, dog.
They have holes above. I see.
Your bottom east is good ice. Hold up. Let me join your break room wall. This is castled. Ice, there's holes in your break room wall. They're looking at you from 90. There's a guy 90 through this hole looking at you. Nice. Good f***ing baby.
I love
Keep
you.
going. We're in the round.
We're good.
Okay, triple wall is reinforced. I'm grabbing the guy.
Reloading.
50.
Bottom metal.
90. Bombs down.
Bottom metal.
I have top.
Bottom metal.
Dead.
Done.
Bottom metal dead.
Small office.
I'm so bad.
I'm not.
Thank God you have 100 bullets, huh?
I f***ing love you, dude.
I'm the
Holy
best, baby.
Dude, this man Loki literally precise called on this. I really hope they get that replay, dude. Yep, you go in
He's
your
going to
spot.
hatch.
Yep, on you. On the hatch though.
He's on the hatch
I
peeking.
got comms. He's on the hatch flashing. About to drop. 3, 2, 1. He dropped.
Drop.
Good.
Nice. Good Jacob.
Good job.
He's armoring. Or archives.
Archives.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh my god,
I
you
didn't
guys
know-
are so fast.
Terrible.
Boys.
Let's go.
Terrible. Holy shit.
Hey, the Converse guys look like they're having a lot of fun. So, you know, as easy as it's been for their in general, you know, UCC run, at least they're having a good time while doing it. The thing is, that's got to stop now. I think that fun, right? Obviously, they're going to try to have as much fun as they can.
I don't know yet.
But NC State are going to be the toughest opponents they've faced in this entire bracket in the last, you know, month by far. Speaking of, we can talk about them now. The Converse, their opponents today, it is, of course, North Carolina State University. John, why don't you take us through this roster?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm quite, I would say a bit personal with these guys. I've met them before in the past. I know them quite well. We've got Taco, Rai, Drew, Anarchy, and Predator. And just like Converse, they are a very well star-studded team. They might not have as many trophies, but they've got a couple in the shelves. I will say that much. I ended up doing quite well during the Purdue Invitational. I know during the preseason of Season 7, they ended up winning that one out. But besides that, they've always kind of fallen a bit short. We talked about this a bunch yesterday. They've always made it to like that round of 8, those quarter and semifinals, but then they end up losing to a Titan like Akron, like they did in the regular season of R6CC, where they lost that 2-1, or lose to a bigger team like Purdue or Converse, for example, as well. So this is really their big shot and probably their final dance, their last chance to prove themselves as not just a top 5 team, but maybe the top team overall here in Collegiate.
I love it. The final dance. And that's what it is for many of these players, right? They're playing their final collegiate game for 3 of them at least. They're done after this, and boy, would they love to end with a bang. But, I mean, Carter, we did see some of these flashy plays. We did see some impressive stuff from this entire roster just yesterday.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, when I mentioned Converse's playmaking and Akron's playmaking as well, it's not that NCSU lacks that. I'm sure in some of the clips you'll see, especially on the attack, Taco in particular is able to get aggressive, where a lot of his teammates, like maybe Pred or Anarchy, they have some clutch potential, but they're not going to be the ones to set it in through the doorway. They can all hold their own on a defensive half, but on the attack, Taco's usually the one to get it done. But what I want to see today is NCSU getting the 2 over Akron yesterday. It was very close. Akron in a lot of those rounds were able to get the better of NCSU via that aggression that Converse could also implement. But we're in a best of 5 now. This gives some of the more structured teams, in this case NCSU, a lot of time to breathe, a lot of time to workshop, and as John mentioned earlier, maybe abuse some map pool weaknesses that could be in Converse. It was a close game for NCSU yesterday, but I think the longer these series go, I think NCSU are going to have a much better time than in, say, a smaller best of 3.
I mean, to be fair, NC State as well, I mean, they didn't have, that much time to prep for this game in particular, though.
That's
we
true.
heard it.
That's a good point.
Taco, in his interview yesterday, he said, you know what, we didn't even expect to get this far, let alone take down Akron. Now they stare in the face of Converse. I imagine they, tried to prep against Converse after that game yesterday. But, I mean, John, is that really enough time to take down a team that has won most of the collegiate competition so far this year?
It's a pretty good question, a tough one at that too, Jonah. I would potentially feel like, especially for a lot of the comfort picks for Converse, for example, it might be a little bit too tricky for NC State, even if they have a lot of insider information from watching them play a lot of these maps on stream. So at the end of the day, it's probably going to be a lot like the Akron game. Although it was a 2-0, it's going to be incredibly close, 7-5, 7-4, for example. So it's going to be a lot of gritty rounds in between this best of 5, and we just might see that veteran skill out by Converse, just slightly outbeat NCSU, but it's going to be really too close to call until we actually get to see what happens tonight.
Well, once again, we do have some stats to look at from this entire Unified Collegiate Championship run from NC State. These map statistics coming from the entire bracket, and these player statistic, those individual numbers that you see, that has been coming just from the quarterfinals and onward. But Carter, I mean, much like Converse, we're seeing some strong individual performances here.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously, Drew, Anarchy, and Pred all reaching that upper echelon. And while the defense and the attack win rates might not be nearly as high as Converse, I think partially that's evidence of, well, one, NCSU liking to keep things a little bit more close, but also having a much more difficult side of the bracket. Obviously, that go up against UTSA, who they ended up dropping a map to, Wisconsin, who they ended up dropping a map to, and they also had to face Akron to get here, and we know how close of a game that was. But immediately what I want to see, and John, I know you probably have something to say about this, a much wider breadth of maps played by NCSU since the round of 16, whereas Converse only had 4, maybe 5. We have everything but 2 maps played by NCSU, and I imagine they're still got something on the 2 they haven't played.
Yeah, they got a lot of variation here, but like you said, also a couple of not as good results, a loss on Clubhouse and a loss on Border.
That's true.
That was not something we saw from Converse. They, again, had gone flawless. But let's turn our attention to another comms video. We got a chance to listen into some Converse comms, now some NC State comms, and if your audio is a little quiet, crank that up because there are some bangers in this video. Please take a listen.
Hey, John. I just want you all to know that I love you, and it's been an awesome couple years playing with you guys.
Would you just listen? Save the speech for after we lose the finals.
No,
Okay.
hey, listen. Hey,
Save the speech for after we lose the finals.
If anything for these last 2 days has taught us anything, is that what's about to happen on this map doesn't mean shit. Okay, these last 2.5 years, I am so pumped to have been able to spend so much time with like some of my best friends in the world. So I don't give a what happens. If we win, when we win, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be hype. But I'm just glad that I'm spending it with you boys. All right.
Love you.
So let's just get it.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Hey, boys, win or lose, this is your last chance to shit on my map.
Let's go.
See
Yeah,
you.
Hayden, you just want to like
So we're going.
get these kills.
We're going direct, we're going
Let's get
direct.
these kills, huh?
Let's just like I don't know, get the kills.
Me when I get kills. Hey, look, I got one.
Okay,
Grant, go no, Grant. You have nades,
Grant,
you can give me
Grant, I'm telling you,
and you can sneak in somewhere.
I pee my pants when I'm playing China and somebody's in mud. I just want you to know that. So
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try and get to.
we don't have diffuser. We don't have diffuser. We have to go for kills.
Both bar.
One dead. He's close.
That's what we're Yana!
You're so chilling. Elevator hatch.
It's up on me, boy!
Two left down, dead. I'm helping you.
Oh my god, that was so.
Dude, I just timing the out of these guys.
You honestly fucking did. You really did. I was like, we're at me and Hayden.
You said Andrew Hayden.
Fred,
I knew.
It's my last smoke,
It was just one. Two.
Andrew, you're on cam. Under the hatch by like the lamp.
Archives.
Oh, nice try. Hey, we go.
Wait, how do we adapt to you? How do we want to fix this? They didn't go windows until very late. They literally all just stack spiral.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to
We
fix
just
it other
play
than
like.
kill him.
Yeah, I guess so.
20 seconds.
Janitor.
Oh my god!
I f***ing love y'all. Oh my god.
God, they were just hype. They were bringing the energy, they were bringing the love, and that's just something you'll love to see. I mean, hopefully they'll be able to bring some of that same energy, much like Converse. It seems like everyone has been having a good time leading up to this point, but here is where it gets sweaty. Here's where, I mean, it comes down to it. There are $15,000 to be distributed between both of these teams, $10,000 for the winner and $5,000 for second place. You would love to walk out of this with an extra $5,000, I am sure. But we've got our map bans, John. Let's dive into them and see where we're playing tonight.
I'm really hoping to see some target bans, to be honest. And off the bat, yeah, we've got Chalet. That's the big elephant in the room. That is Converse's bread and butter. Always has been, always will be, no matter who you ask. And NC State, they are well aware of that. They don't even want to try any pocket strats to counteract Converse. They're just going to ban that map and just run away from it like it's the plague. And honestly, Jonah, I do not blame them.
Yeah, and then of course we have Villa coming up after as a pick by NC State, which after their win yesterday against Akron and also just being a map they do enjoy playing, I think is good. However, I would be a little worried for them, not because I think it's a bad pick, but just because, again, some of the similarities between Converse and Akron, it might not be as easy of a fight as they might end up hoping. Clubhouse coming after, of course, a map that NC State took an L on earlier on in the bracket, and also a map that Converse, not really having to pull out anything tricky to outstrat NCSU, they can let their fragging do the talking. But then later on, of course, we have Oregon as an intermediary, but then we have Border later on, John. This is that map that NC State dropped earlier on to Wisconsin, I believe, at a very close margin, a map that they thought they had figured out.
And in general as well, Carter, I feel like for both Converse and NC State, when they did bring out the Border, it was kind of sloppy, but it might again just come down to that gritty kind of play style, and that might just give Converse the upper hand, because although they had a bit of a rough time there against OSU, they still got the win at the end of the day, and they're still probably a bit more confident on that map in comparison to NC State, despite the fact how much both teams have probably been scrimming on it.
Bank is a fun one to end on, though. I mean, if we get that far, we saw Bank just yesterday from NC State taking that win over Converse, that second map. But we've also seen Converse play here before, and they've also beat Akron before, Carter. Do you think we're going to get to map 5?
I mean, I hope we'll get to map 5. I personally would like a map 5 today, and, you know, a lengthy series to cap the end of the academic year, but I think while we could, I'm worried that this could be close enough where Converse could finish it in less than 5 maps. I think NCSU, I don't think they get 3-0, and I do think they take at least one map. Maybe it's Villa, maybe it's Oregon, but I'm worried that Club and Border, those seem like maps that are really going to favor Converse, especially after NCSU having a rough history on Club and a shaky history on Border. I think Converse might be able to squeeze out a win on Oregon or Villa by a small margin, and that'll be enough.
Well, why don't we do one more final order of business before we send things over to our game? We've got all this information on the table, so let's make a prediction. John, I think I will throw it to you first. Who is going to take this grand final best of 5? Who is going to prove themselves as the best team in Collegiate?
You know, Converse, they have definitely gained that moniker several times over and under, and they're probably looking to do that today as well. But something in my heart, man, I really can't do Hayden wrong today. I have not seen him in this position in such a long time, and I think we're going to have NC State probably firing on all cylinders today. I'm really thinking that there's a good chance they take this win, and if that happens, it's probably going to be on bank 3-2.
Carter?
Well, I hate to be the bad guy. I love NCSU. I certainly am. I'm not rooting for them. Let's say that. I'm just worried based on how these map pools can go, the quick turnaround time for NCSU from their close game yesterday. I think it will be a close one, 3-1 minimum, but I think Converse take it in the end.
Well, I will throw my prediction in the mix. If you saw my tweet at JaysWills on Twitter, quick plug, you will know that I am 100% an unbiased caster. No affiliation with either team. I do believe NC State are going to take this, so I will pass it over to you guys and let you take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Jonah. And again, I will say, while I might be, betting my money on Converse, I will certainly be happy if NC State take the W at the end of the day. But mostly, John, I'm just rooting for competitiveness. I'm just rooting for 5 maps. That's who I want to win, is us with a 5-map game.
Yeah, that would make the most sense. The probably best game we've had ever in the collegiate scene. Something with so much on the line, some of the best teams in the scene. We want it to be a good show, and I think NC State and Converse are willing to provide that today. Starting out on Villa, map 1, we've got NC State on the offense, Converse defending, and the bans so far look pretty standard, but again, a lot is on the line, so I don't blame them. Thatcher and Flores for the attack, and I would assume the defensive bans are going to be quite common as well in default.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. Did see some good use of that Flores yesterday on Villa, though, so good ban by NCSU to get off. It's also just a solid operator on Villa. Don't want to deal with it. Valkyrie followed up next as well. John, I have a feeling, this might be a bit more common when it comes to the defensive bans. Mira would be a logical follow-up ban, but sometimes when that Flores, is taken off the board, the Wamai is a common follow-up just to even things out, make the power of projectiles a little bit better. But no, Mira taken down. We'll just have a standard Villa ban phase today.
You know, it's every time you bring up the option of a Wamai ban, it just never happens.
It's never worked. It never
maybe
works.
You just have to wait until he gets officially banned, and then you can begin to talk about it. But hey, I guess we can bring up Wamai once again because he will be an option, and it makes a lot of sense. The more utility you have in a certain spot of the map, the longer you can hold that position. And for a site like Aviator Games, there are a plethora of those positions. With both Thorn and Smoke available, that's 2 shields. You can maybe extend both in the top of main, maybe also go all the way to the top of red stairs. And again, that's just to waste time and force NCSU to just have to use a lot more of their utility early on. That could end up leading them to stall a bit when they go for the actual site execute. And for a site like Aviator in Games, there are a lot of good anchor positions you can hold, especially when you have either that operator of Smoke or the Tachanka. And in this case, we actually the former of that with Avian rocking the SAS operator today.
Yeah, when NCSU go to the defense, you could probably expect a lot of that Smoke Tachanka play bunkering down towards the site. For Converse, I would not expect that whatsoever. They'll probably favor holding red stairs with that Wamai, having somebody with maybe Ice Cold or Thunder, could be either, pushed far up into 90 to try to stop the attack from gaining that bit of control, red stairs in 90, early on, and stalling out some time with that utility. Of course, saw Akron do a similar thing yesterday, and NCSU were able to counteract it to varying degrees of success. I will expect them to try to go downstairs a little bit, though, and put as much pressure on focus on that red stairs position as early on as I can.
Looks like we've got tons of utilities stacked up over the top of main. That shield I was talking about earlier looks like Thunder will be holding out that one, and across the ways we've got a slight extension leading over around near the side of both Trophy and Statuary. Saw a bit of vertical play being done by Lokiria that could be utilized to help the plant denial or also just help find a kill with that shotgun potentially depending on where exactly you sit. The drone game already being relatively effective, forcing Converse a little bit farther back, but they're not playing for an immediate aggressive position. They've got tons of util stacked up at the top of red. They got players that that can also stack up near 90 as well. So it was more or less just wasting a bit of that intel economy early on. And speaking of that intel game, Carter, it's already down to just 5 drones.
Now it is affected a little bit by the presence of a Twitch that obviously affects the drone counter and what really is true, but those Twitch drones aren't really going to be used for intel. They're going to likely be shot in for utility and will end up finding themselves in positions where they will get shot. Down to 4 now for NCSU, and a team that relies on structure and utilizing their team play to suffocate opponents and push them back off these drones, excuse me, mixed drones and Rome. It's very worrying because now they're down to 2. On top of these Twitch drones. John, I can't think of a more effective early round Converse could have gone for without getting any kills. If they get one at this point, maybe finding this Twitch as she pushes on top red, this is an absolute win for Converse in the first half of the round.
And one thing to note as well, the fact we still have Locurio playing underneath as well, it does allow a bit more safety for Ice Cold. No one can directly push him from that middle floor without having to worry about dying early on. But speaking of that death, Locurio, name the man I was just talking about earlier, gets finished off by Anarchy for that first opening duel, but there is still tons of utility that NC State have to push through, so it's not really over just yet for Converse, especially if Ice Cold can work a pick.
Oh, but that chance is slowly moving down. He gets one, but there we go. Taco comes from below. They might have been short on drones, NCSU, but they've been able to get these picks despite all of those odds going against them, dismantling red stairs and even finding some picks on the site. They have outdone themselves with the lack of intel they had going into the late round. They only have 40 seconds left, but in the 2v4, they're in an excellent spot. Avian, he has 20 seconds of denial left, so if NCSU waste a little bit too much time, no drones now, they only have the Gemini Replicator. If they can't clear out Thunder or he keeps providing an obstacle, they're going to run into issues. He's dropped the case on the floor, and they're all funneling in one by one. Taco goes soon after. Everyone else has rotated over to study. Thunder has rotated in turn. He might get too aggressive here. They know Anarchy is on maps. He'll push in forward, retreats into Boar, but only 9 seconds left. 2 defenders to take down. Thorn picks up one. A 4K for Thunder. An excellent clear by NCSU despite the lack of drones, and it's that need for intel that does them in the end.
Yeah, not being 100% sure if Thunder was still playing in the middle of 90 or not, and not having anyone either wrap around near the 90 window of hell or having someone just walk in from the long hallway from 90 side towards bookshelves. It allowed for a complete funnel, single file line into the Thorn, and it allowed a complete bounce back by Converse, despite the fact that NC State, they were low on drones, but they were still able to win those gunfights and make it the 4v2 with only having to worry about Avian inside of sight and the guy sitting quite comfortably in the middle of 90. But at the end of the day, a round win is still a round win, and now Converse can begin to move on over to Trophy and Statuary with that round win already in their back pocket.
Yeah, and definitely, of course, it's easier said than done, but NCSU might need to be a little bit more reserved with their drone economy. It's important to clear out those roams. It certainly is to get some of that utility down, but definitely seem to be some jitters going on, maybe being a little bit too careless, or hey, maybe even just unlucky with some of those drone placements in the prep phase. If NCSU are starved of intel, their more structured playstyle is going to suffer as a result, and Converse can start running over them with their gun skill. We'll see how they adapt in round number 2. As with Trophy Statuary, if you want to go for a direct, go for a bedroom take, it's a lot easier to do than Aviator games, and that means you won't have to send as many drones through the map. We'll see if they opt to go for that, of course, or if they go for that full clear. With everyone spawning over by bedroom, I imagine they might be trying to go for this a little more straightforward.
That would not be a horrible idea, especially with the fact there is no kite on the board. You could just throw over a good chunk of utility, even if there are a couple of magnets purposely dedicated to just stopping that trip wall from being opened up. It does make a lot of sense. And if you want to go for that bottom to top clear as well, you can begin to pinch your way both from Master Bedroom and from Astro Stairs, get control of Astro, and have a pretty default and normal-esque kind of approach that would force that roam game that we saw over near Aviator side to probably fall back, and that could allow for more time to be spared by NC State just to, in general, have a pretty fast execute, especially if they get that man advantage. But for right now, they're playing rather calm still on that drone game, trying to spot out any roamers that may be on that first floor, and then they can begin to apply pressure via those fragmentation grenades.
Yeah, rather calm, but certainly an expeditious approach for NCSU. Already acquired full control of the bottom floor beneath Trophy Statuary within the first minute, within the first 30 seconds, really. That second batch of 30 seconds was just to place down some air jabs, some utility, and, well, just get everyone inside the building that wanted to be there. So overall, excellent work by NCSU so far, even putting pressure on Brick's doorway, but Thunder moves out, maybe getting a little bit over-aggressive. There is the master bedroom shield that allows anybody playing on that Brick store to have a little bit easier of a time, but he throws out a C4 and maybe gets a little overzealous, loses that utility, and also loses some HP, and the triple panel gets opened nonetheless via those X-Kairos. So even though there was some resistance by the mute, overall, again, an excellent start for NCSU.
We've got the minute 20 mark left here. Nade is just about to miss, I believe it to be. Doesn't actually connect on all that much, except a little bit of soft flooring. But for the most part, everything still seems according to plan here for NC State. No one's trying to get cheeky and going in on a last-second rotation yet by Converse. They seem to be fully focused on this execute denial. And besides Lokirio maybe trying to find a peek outside in the balcony, it seems like it will remain this 5-on-5 Carter for just a little while longer.
Yes, it just might, and that, we'll say, that does serve to favor Converse unless somebody starts getting aggressive and getting active. But oh no, Taco, too little ammo, too little time to react to Ice Cold. He downed Avian, a very important pick, or almost a pick, I will say. Rai finishes that one off, and there we go. Okay, Drew able to compensate for that loss of the Yana. Now this is looking like a solid execute for NCSU. Still some players in the site, some flexibility with Boar and Top Red in the hands of the defense. They have Astronomy, and that can be enough if you can take down one more player, specifically Thunder, on 1 HP. One prone behind the bomb chassis. Ooh, can't be read in time. Excellent trade by Rai, and the follow-up by Anarchy, and the only one left already on 1 health. Hard pings going in. He has some intel. Almost gets the kill on Bricks, but a whiffed shot and missed opportunity gives NCSU a solid round, even though they were certainly taking their time with it.
And because we didn't see any really early aggression by Converse, it did allow NC State to take a lot of their time and be pretty reserved about how they wanted that round to play out. They spent a good minute and a half fully clearing out most of that middle floor. They still had tons of information and utility to get that triple wall opened up, applying tons of pressure, forcing Converse a bit back, and it did force their hand as well. Ice Cold had to drop through the hatch, and I believe that was over near Astra, if not just fully rotating around near Red, for example, and trying to find a kill in that direction. He ended up getting at least one, but again, the overall presence of NC State was still strong. They were able to trade almost immediately and continue to creep their way in through both Astro near that triple wall position, like I was talking about early in the round, giving them tons of site presence to begin to force that plant while also having that man advantage.
Yeah, I really think overall that time management was just so stellar. They go through the early round early on, they know that bottom is clear, and then they spend the rest of their time focusing on opening up that triple panel, focusing on getting Astro control, and it might have come down to 30 seconds. That was overall just good budgeting on their part. Converse will switch sites, though, as a result. Not winning Trophy Statuary, they'll hop down to Kitchen and open up the entirety of the triple panel. Very interesting setup, using the long angle provided by just sitting in Statuary and opening that entire wall up to give Ice Cold maybe a bit more advantageous of a position without having to play as aggressively.
Seems like that will end up being the true mark. They might not even try to directly hold around near. No, I can imagine they would still want to hold inside a trophy, but they have a couple of castle barricades, some of those key choke points to, again, just have less to worry about and maybe allow for an easier fallback. But no falling back for Ice Cold up until now. He ends up spotting on a drone, does not want to try to challenge that LMG with just the UMP-45, and ends up moving his way in towards Red a little bit closer towards his teammates for that potential trade game if need be. Something that was incredibly lacking from Converse on round number 2, so hopefully they're trying to actually relieve that problem they had last time to just, again, force NC State to waste more of their own time. And when we saw that over on round number 1 and they didn't have a lot of information, it did cause them a lot of problems. So if we just see better time stalled by Converse, this could be a much better round for them in comparison to the last one.
We heard a drone sliding and wheeling around Red Stairs earlier. Thought maybe they had spotted Ice Cold and we'd see Drew use a nade, but no, instead they spot him. But oh no, an even worse batch of secondary utility lands on the field. A double C4 kill onto the Finka and the Jackal. Thankfully, you might not be missing the Inoxes all that much. There are some players off the site, but they're not lurking like you might otherwise expect from Converse. But still, that 2K with that C4 aided by Avian on the pulse. Beautiful play by Lokirio right there and the rest of Converse to get an early advantage.
I mean, that's still a 5 versus 3 example. Lokirio, a beautiful shot with the SMG-11, instantly trades against Anarchy, and it's still not much left here for NC State that they are able to accomplish unless they'd manage to isolate a couple of 1-for-1s here. The Malusia BDA is still playing up on this top floor, but Predator doesn't have a good angle to actually deal with this roamer up above. They're going to have to fully move around potentially inside of Boar Room, and at that point, we could probably imagine Converse will expect that, and they'll be able to counteract that perfectly. But matter of fact, Predator, he might have to end up just giving up on this attack on the top floor to end up helping out Rai in this final minute.
Yeah, with no sledge or breach charges, the only way to open up those castle barricades with the X-Kairos, and might take a little bit too long to get, what, just one guy upstairs? They'll turn their attention towards the site, and Pred gets in for about half a second, then falls to Ice Cold's UMP, and the Super Shorty does Rai in the end. Overall, just an excellent usage of that Pulse and that C4, and even then, without either of those, just Lokirio doing the Lord's work through the floorboards.
And again, like round one, having that problem of a lack of general information, it did do NC State in off the bat. They lost 2 people via a Nitro cell by Lokiro, and a pretty common one at that around the 90 area. It made it that instant 5-on-3. And although the operators that died weren't the biggest problem, it's still that 5-on-3. And for a gun-heavy team like Converse, they are going to take that position any day of the week because they can continue to double down that aggression. They can remain stubborn on those roam games and really force the hand of NC State to make uncomfortable moves, and that's exactly what we saw. Both Rai and Predator just trying their best, both near Memo and the Flight of Laundry, and those were the only 2 options they had, and it was just easy 1-for-1s for Ice Cold to wrap it up and give themselves that 2-1 lead.
Now heading back to Aviator Games, Converse took the win in round number 1. Maybe we'll be able to see a little bit more of that come to fruition. They ended up winning the round, but it was mainly on the back of, well, NCSU hurting a lot in the intel department, a very small to literally no amount of drones at the end of the round, which helped Thunder get his 4K towards the end. But overall for NCSU, it was actually a pretty solid round, John. You might disagree, but they're able to start moving in quickly, push back, and get the kill on red stairs, clear out 90 as well. It really was just the lack of intel in the late round that allowed Thunder to reposition and get the best of them.
Yeah, that was really the worst part for NCSU, is just their lack of information in the final minute or so. And also the lack of general tag team positions as well. They didn't do the best of job of trying to deal with Thunder once they eventually realized he was there. Even though Thunder found 1 kill in 90, it's still a 3v2. You still have somebody near Study, and you know Avian is either in the back of bar top with both walls reinforced at that point, or he's playing in Hunting, for example, inside of Vault. So you can easily isolate and force a 2-versus-1 position, worst case scenario, against Thunder, but because NC State refused to do that and they were just too hard focused on dealing with him directly near the bore side of 90, it just spelt disaster for them. So if we see better team play in the final, 50 seconds, for example, for NC State, this should be much smoother waters for them.
Oh, talking about team play, but right now it's very scattered, very sporadic for NCSU right now. See a couple over by Study and Main Door, a couple over by Master Bedroom, whereas before it was a very consolidated approach in the Master Bedroom, just moving on through. Now, probing and prodding for any potential weaknesses or opportunities in Converse's lineup. We see one taken by Drew, 2 nades through the floorboards, but unfortunately he sends it right under the maps table, so only does a little bit of damage to Ice Cold, and that shield will remain solid. There's also 1 player down below right now. The shield might be got, but Lokirio on the prowl inside of Library at the moment. Hopefully NCSU are keeping a bead on him and not letting things get too far away from them.
Eventually having that shield gone, though, does allow for a much easier push leading in through either Skull or just Study directly. We still have Rai playing on that Study balcony on the ace. If he wants to, he can open up either the bar wall or have an Aviator kill hole as well to stop that player instead of Hunting from having a pretty strong angle with dealing for any attacker trying to walk in and going for that default plant. And still with a minute on the board, tons of information can be gathered, and that first opening duel, Ice Cold is able to trade it back, but it's still that 4-versus-4, and now that BDA is fallen, it can be a true 4v4, but not for long as the Razor Bloom's there to take care of Drew.
Who unlucky for Drew right there, but still with Ice Cold on 1 HP, he's got to play a lot more conservative in that vault, and if Rai goes in for the plant, the moment he swings out, anybody watching from Study or just holding that angle will likely be able to take him down. Anarchy, the only one down below on main stairs at the moment, probably will have to give up this position. Avian does it a little bit sooner, but still with Thunder right there, he has to win his 1 if he pushes here, and that might be too risky of a gambit in a 3v4 man disadvantage with only 30 seconds left. He'll hold steadfast for the time being. He does have Rai on top of Study or on study window right now, but he just, look here, just sprints on through, okay? One free one is gifted to Anarchy, who now might feel emboldened to push up main, but the importance of this duel with Thunder remains solid. Nade caught by the ADS, the Thorn vaults over, pile drives Anarchy into the floor. That still leaves 2 players on 1 HP. Rai gives up the angle and starts pushing on in. The Pred's on solo duty and ends up being damaged by his teammate, finished off by Ice Cold as well. He'll get one impactless frag, but the round still goes Converse way.
And in the end, it was still just down to a slight lack of team play. They weren't able to push out Thunder all at the exact same time, and it was still a 1-for-1 with an alley-oop over by Thunder. Funny enough to confirm that kill on towards the sledge, and still a bit of a general time stall as well for NC State altogether. They had a lot of struggles trying to work their way properly in through both skull doorway and the opposite study doorway in towards the site, especially against Avian, who made a really smart play. He saw the time, he saw that Thunder could still comfortably hold down the top of main, and was like, you know what, I'm just gonna save my 3 smokes and use them to actually stop the execute, and it made that site push a nightmare for NC State. So again, that last second adaptation made by Converse, it's always been a comfort for them, and it's gonna reign true still in this first half.
NCSU, thankfully, they're able to get a win on this site last time, and what really has seemed to be a pattern so far for NCSU, excuse me, is that when they're not able to find, not necessarily a ready-made position, but if they're really not able to create an opening on one specific part of the map, they struggle. And, you know, that might seem very simplistic, like, oh, well, of course, obviously, but they're not really able to force it, it seems like. Sometimes Taco, in this case, just had to rush up Astro stairs, and he managed to down one, but was still finished off later. It really just seems like NCSU are relying on some individual plays to create space in the round, and hey, Taco's an aggressive player. He could certainly do that. He said so himself yesterday in the interview, I believe, but it's not something that Converse are falling prey to very easily so far.
It seems like the hey, I'm going to work a pick strategy is just not
exactly
working out completely for NC State as of now. You can maybe argue that it is much easier to defend on Villa, but maybe not to the degree potentially of a 4-2 or that 5-1 split as you tend to see some more when you have a very one-sided matchup. But for NC State, looks like they're not going to change all that much on their overall attack. They still want to actually end up getting control of Master pretty early on the round, and Drew as well, trying to enter into Laundry again, playing for that grenade spam underneath, maybe trying to not only break utility, but also find some sort of opening duel, because when Converse gets that 5-on-4 lead, it's very challenging for NCSU to climb up that hill. And speak of the devil, Taco, someone who's been trying to be more aggressive in this matchup, has been punished once again, and that's Converse to take that 5-on-4 lead.
Yeah, the very player that was down by Taco in the previous trophy statuary attack, Avian, gets the better of the Yana this time. That's NCSU's most aggressive player down. They've still been able to get a fair bit of control downstairs, but beyond that, they're still maybe suffering to the Thunder, but he takes an aggressive fight down below that hatch, and Predator is more than wary of it and reacts just in time. Still a couple players that they need to worry about, though. Ice Cold and Lokirio, one inside a kitchen dining, the other over inside of living room and library. But still, with NCSU having 2 men in bedroom and 2 men down below, they have to be worried that, again, they're cognizant of these players off-site.
Potentially see NC State maybe try to ignore more of that middle floor pressure that could actually allow for Asher to be hold for much longer. You've got Ice Cold playing directly under the hatch, and Avian playing close with that shotgun. He actually tries to retake Master Bedroom for the time being, so he can again just play for that close quarters confrontation and maybe utilize the smoke grenades a bit more aggressively in comparison to the last round as well, which if you've got 30 seconds of time stall when there's only about 50 on the clock, that could really be a lot of hurt here for NC State. But Drew, a beautiful shot and great repositioning to take the lead for the final 45.
I mean, Ice Cold wasn't helping out the site players very much, but hey, that's at least a man advantage right there. That's a little bit of confidence you can move with going into the final 40 seconds. Anarchy also, we talked about working a pick. He's hopped on the opposite side of the map right now, and he could catch Converse off guard, but that's what I was worried about. Lokirio could get the best of him, and that advantage you got on Ice Cold is now squandered because you wanted to make a play. Right now, alone on the other side of the map as well, though I believe actually there might be somebody close by. Yes, it's Drew that's over there, but he sprayed through the wall and BDA cuts him down. There's one to get the trade, and he almost reacts in time, but it's the Finka, the only one showing up for NCSU in round number 5. 2v2. Ooh, spots Lokirio. Ace territory right now, but only 5 seconds. That's plenty of time for Pred to land the headshot. Round 5 does go their way, John, but again, it seemed a little bit close in the end.
And in the early round as well, it did lead to somewhat of a snowball. We had Thunder wanted to challenge the hatch yet again, even though it was already that 5 versus 4 position. A little bit of greed ended up being a bit too much there for Converse and allowed that 4 versus 4. Not a huge deal, but in the end, when it really came close to the wire, that extra player up could have been tremendous to still play for that trade game, especially since we saw constant mobility by pretty much everyone NC State, but in particular, Drew and Rai. We had Drew, especially on the Finca, just running around constantly, finding those kills on the bottom floor, finding them all the way on the top as well in the last couple moments, just to salvage that round and still try to keep things close for that final execute.
Again, it's the last round on NCSU's half, but I would still like to see something a little bit more convincing. There's a bit more of a positive note going in. Even if they end at 3-3, that'll obviously be good, but these rounds have really been decided on whether NCSU can work a pick, get an advantageous position in the late round by just, again, sending somebody in. And, round 2 it was Taco, round 5 it was Drew getting a 4K. And something a little bit more revolving around their team. Maybe it's just struggles on the attack right now. They certainly had their issues on Villa as well. But again, going here, especially on Kitchen Dining, where they couldn't even start chipping away at the armor of this Rome. I'm not the most confident in NCSU right now, at least on map number 1.
Really seems for NC State just not having that information that Converse were playing heavily with just general drone games and also default cameras to go and play for that Nitro Cell and also play off of contact information with Ice Cold playing on the top of red. It definitely spelt disaster from the get-go, so maybe NC State will just try to change up their general movement on this round to better counteract that C4 play perhaps, especially with a Mozzie on the board. That is just direct information. And speaking of direct, it looks like we've got a direct approach hopping immediately into Bike, with both Drew and Taco, the LMG tag team buddies, just immediately waltzing in and trying to find that opening blood.
They're trying to find it, but Taco's the only one bloodied so far. Drew does react onto Avian, who peeks around Tetris, so that's the opening and the advantage right there. But Thunder with a beautiful C4 takes down the already weathered Zofia. And Rai coming on in through Laundry, brings it back, tips the scales again for NCSU. But Converse seem more than prepared for this rush. Ice Cold loses an opportunity, but regains it on the turnaround. Rai retaking the fight. Thunder creeping up from basement, gets his second on the round. NCSU going for a rush. They have done repeatedly on Villa, did the same thing yesterday. And Converse, when they walked in the building, or when NCSU walked in the building, Converse seemed more than ready for it. Predator will try to regain some semblance of a win upstairs, but again, BDA, aware that he might push in through bathroom, puts Pred to 1 HP. And because of this castle barricade, there is no angle that Pred can really take to get a leg up on BDA. Alongside him and Anarchy, neither really in a great spot to win this.
Got one more Lion scan, so potentially some pocket information perhaps, but Ice Cold is still unwilling to move away from the middle of that Tetris position, finds another one, Predator goes down, and Thunder's just waiting for the perfect moment to strike upon Anarchy. If you actually heard the audio call that he's on his drone, that could have been a free kill, but it looks like he'll wait and be patient in case Anarchy rotates around instead of hopping his way in through Mema, but he'll still hear that and still relay that information, but it's not going to be all that required. Ice Cold already had that well known. He finds a third on the castle pick, and it's once again a round win in this middle floor for Converse, bringing us 4-2.
And for that final round, I appreciate the attempt to go for something decisive, catch Converse off guard. But as I said before, that's a rush that NCSU literally did the exact same play yesterday. And I don't just mean like the exact same play, hopping in through that window, but I'm like down to the op lineup and the players hopping in through the window. It seemed a little pre-prepared, which again, if the team isn't expecting it, could certainly work out. But Converse aren't, some slouch. They aren't some, nobody team. This is the dominant force in Collegiate right now. You can't just bring out a rush you've done 10 million times and expect them to be, surprised and suddenly get caught off guard. So overall for NCSU, a lackluster attacking half, especially for their map pick, when you could probably expect that you're going to be starting out on the attack since the other team gets side selection. But going towards here, NCSU maybe will feel a little bit more comfortable on the defense. With their structure, with this op lineup, maybe they'll be able to sort of slow down Converse and keep to their pace.
Well, I'm hoping they can slow down Converse on this round. They've got so much utility to do it. They've got the Vulcan packs, which those can stall about 20 seconds a pop. Those are always fantastic to have, especially on a site like Aviator and the side of Games Room as well. It's just super easy to waste time. You can sit in the back of bar as either that Smoke Tachanka and just throw out as much stall utility over in the side near that default plant and pretty much be scot-free unless someone's playing for vertical. But you can always have a defender to try and deny that if need be. So having all this utility on the board, if we don't have NC State slow down Converse to at least a slight degree, that's going to be a tremendous red flag moving into the second half, Carter.
BDA might be able to bypass all that utility you were talking about. He's bringing out the Nook pick at the moment. Normally what we see there is the Nook go to the opposite side of the map from the rest of his team. You know, just try to work a pick, get a kill on maybe a defender a little bit too far from home. In this case, BDA might just be getting controlled down below very quick and sort of being like a forward operating team, just moving on in for the rest of the force, securing a location, and then the rest of his team can come and pile up. There is nobody down below right now, though. Drew has been known, as you watched the game against Akron yesterday, to play this position and to try to catch the main stairs players off guard. But then again, Converse also aren't even going for a main stairs take. So a lot of utility that NCSU have set up to deny the main stairs, they'll have to wait for a lot later in the round for it to really be useful.
It was like for NC State, they might have tried falling back at least on some of that slight roam game that they had over near the statue side of the map. Not the worst idea. They don't want to throw away any man advantage early on, again, because they have so much of this utility game that they are kind of stacking up and reserving over and towards the site. It would be better to probably have that man advantage, or at least an equal position. Taco will get a little bit aggressive, and with Ice Cold not fully expecting it, it allows the Jaeger to get the upper hand before anyone can move into 90 window and get that trade. A beautiful nade is landed by BDA, but doesn't fully eliminate Predator. He will remain alive, but just on a sliver HP, but still, you've got all these power positions to hold, and as there's only 2 sets of grenades left and Thunder is nowhere in that bottom floor, it seems like NC State are safe for now.
Safe for now, but intel on somebody involved. That's Anarchy right there. Risk a third player moving down to low HP if you're maybe stepping a little bit too close to that drone hole. Yeah, Pred to layer some magnets and might even put some on that drone hole just in case Converse decide to throw a couple more frag grenades on through. Only have 1 left in Thunder's hand, so probably use them on vertical instead. But here's this drone work. Here's the nade coming on in, and oh, downs Pred and puts Anarchy to 1 HP. Converse getting robbed on these grenades today, but they have certainly damaged these NCSU players enough. BDA goes in for the cleanup crew, gets 2 with the FMG9, looking for 3 with Drew tucked around the corner on this single reinforcement, but he'll hold for the time being. He's acquired control of Vault and sees Book's hallway as well. A 3K at the moment, Taco succumbing to it, a 4K for BDA as he clears out all of the almost dead nade kills.
And that was such a beautiful play by BDA. Nobody is expecting you to just rush in through those smoke grenades at all. You can completely forget about that part of the map. That's what BDA wants you to think. He wants you to put all of your attention just on that hunting wall opening and maybe people moving around from both study and 9ing. That was the golden opportunity for BDA to walk in, and he did so much damage, completely stopped any chances that NC State could salvage that round just based off of a slight man advantage and having a ton of utility at their expenses, and it paid dividends for Converse. They take that first round win on the second half, and although NC State were, able to stave off Converse for a little while, it still was not enough, and apparently your prediction earlier was correct about BBA having a chance at just ignoring all that util and just getting aggressive on the Nook pick.
Yeah, I didn't think it would actually be literal what I said. Normally I say that and I'm just like, oh, they'll bypass the util.
I guess, Carter.
Yeah, they'll bypass the util in the early round and get an early pick, and then they can fully focus on it later on, having already done a little bit of the work. I didn't mean he would just literally sprint through the smoke, which isn't really a unique thing you do with the Nook. I guess that was just BDA feeling himself at that point. But overall, excellent just play by BDA in that late round, able to recognize the situation, how low 3 members of NCSU all in Vault were, and take the opportunity. Now they start out with that first win on the attack, and as opposed to NCSU, that really felt like a round they were in control of.
And I don't know if I want to consider that a red flag perhaps for NC State, because really you're not going to expect someone to be, you know, just running in through the smoke like a crazy man, especially with a Fink on the board. Again, you can lose a lot of HP when those adrenaline surges are popped and you're inside the smoke gas. So having to really focus and tunnel vision on getting that revive and then trying to move away from hunting at the exact same time, it can be a lot of pressure to burden. But still, for Converse, beautiful play. You cannot deny that. And for NC State, they might try to be cooking up some sort of early stress as well. Taco has extended inside of Avian, already deals a good chunk of damage onto Ice Cold. Still not confirming that kill, and probably has to fall back. He'll go for the safer option. Still just trying to keep away Converse for as long as possible, but eventually they have to give up some of that map control just to make sure they don't die early on.
Interesting decision not to clear out that spot with a nade. Actually might have been able to take down Taco. No ADSs on the board, and if there are magnets in that location, it would be minimal considering it's the beginning of the round. But instead, Ice Cold just tries to take the fight, and neither party ends up dying, but it does let Taco get away completely unscathed. So decision by Converse, maybe causing some consequences or some unrealized gains for their attack. But again, everyone's still remaining in a 5v5, half the round gone. We cleared out Aviator Games, pushed up to red and 90. This is where we need to start and should see them start layering down some utility and destroying these players in sight, or maybe even getting a kill with some intel on Taco down below.
Now, once again, great pace so far for Converse, and they're not going to have Taco find that exact same success he did early on in round 7, getting that opening duel as a win. However, he will remain silent here in round 8, probably just remaining on the cams now. They might not know that Drew is underneath their memo as well, which could be a huge position for NC State to try to claw back if they work their way to the top of red. But for now, Drew, he's just going to remain silent, and maybe instead just might try to stop a plant from going down, because he has both the shotgun for vertical and a nitro cell depending on where it gets placed.
The Thunder is wise to this possibility. He might not know that Drew is down there, and it doesn't appear that he knows that Drew is down there, but he knows that somebody might go for a flank. And now that they hear the shotgun blast and Avian has visual confirmation, you'll feel a lot more comfortable in going for this flank. But it's actually BDA instead going for a solo clear. Might be ill thought, though. The very late pinch does end up working out, as Ice Cold joined him in Memorial. They were at something more than just a 50-50 gunfight, with BDA rushing in. Only 25 seconds left, but with 2 rapid kills going Converse way, Anarchy just spots one as Lokirio exposes himself a little bit on the upside down rappel, but that's important because NCSU, despite their man disadvantage, they have control of the bedroom. They also can see BDA moving up the stairs. Rai finishes him off. Converse giving some easy engagements for NCSU to win, and now they're even. Avian also loses an opportunity. The statuary player survives, can even throw a smoke, finished off, can't detonate it in time. Only 1 second left as Anarchy wraps around, spots the player getting off the plant, and the other one too! The 1v2 for Anarchy gets NCSU their first defense and stops the losing streak.
Still plenty of time left to defuse as well for Anarchy, and overall great positioning once again by NC State. They knew that Converse were not trying to funnel or fumble the bag in that 3 versus 2. They were trying to be rather diverse on that round. They killed the guy working their way in through Master. That's one less option you need to worry about. They spotted the player trying to work their way up lower. Master still trying to finish off the remnants of that roam game. Rai just barely able to scrape away with that headshot kill, and at that point it was just the 2 attackers trying to slowly push their way in through either Trophy or Saturate. And with the smoke still available in the pocket of NC State, they only had to worry about one direction, and that was it. And although their general positioning in those final 5 seconds wasn't the best, it was still enough to pull off a rotation, work their way in through the back of Boar entrance, and still manage to win that 1v2 with everyone still hyper focusing on either a bathroom push, leading into Astro, or somebody working their way in through the back area of Trophy, which was the last given information that Converse had as they were getting that plant down. So really great, I suppose, mobility by NC State just in those final 30 seconds or so, just to keep Converse on their toes.
And also just managing to see the edge of Lokirio's head. That clutch is much less likely if Lokirio, the tiniest sliver of his head, is not exposed on that window. You don't have that master bedroom control to rotate on through, and that mobility that won you that clutch is hampered severely. So excellent positioning by Pred in that 2v4. Solid play overall. But now, of course, what are NCSU to do? Manage to win Trophy Statuary by a hair. They'll go down to Kitchen Dining after the solid performance Converse put on Aviator Games. And this time it's a little bit more horizontal, but still trying to open their defense up to a couple different options.
And it seems like Converse still rocking with the I want to deal with the roam game off the bat. trying to get that 5vx position and then just kind of build off that momentum, just get that snowball turned into avalanche effect. And it looks like Thunder might end up finding a bit more than what he had expected early on. Taco gets detected once again, and he'll try to up the ante. He tries to work his way directly into the bathroom area, but is not going to find anything with that quick free fire, and then proceeds to move deeper into the building. As Converse do the exact same. They try to get active. They try to begin to slowly collapse upon these defenders, extending outward into the living room. And although Predator is nearby, there is still a lot of options here for Converse to at least isolate out Taco and either force him to drop down the hatch or just die outright.
Taco has been pinched fairly well by Converse, especially in the previous round, found out on the roam. This time he has a little bit more support, not as separated, but a lot of intel in his position because of those Inoxes, more drones to come as well, and also some utility potentially. Just spots somebody moving on into his domain, but he will both escape for the time being. Finally peeks out, down goes the Jackal. The Zofia able to finish him off, albeit at the cost of quite a bit of HP. Overall, half the round wasted, probably a successful roam from Taco, especially when you consider over half the drones for Converse now gone.
And you still need to worry about Predator. He's got a deployable shield just to sit on. If Zofia had died, it probably would have been the grenades of Ice Cold to have to deal with this deployable shield. I think eventually we see Predator fall back closer inside of Astro's stairs, but he still is backed up by Anarchy as well. Not that much map control has been made by Converse, especially on this top floor, and because that allows NC State to still comfortably extend and waste as much map control and time as humanly possible for the final 50 seconds,
Predator creeping down below. Gotta be careful where he goes. Okay. I was worried he might go up red and play a little bit too aggressive, but Pred makes the smart move, the safe move in this case, which is just go up pantry, play behind that barricade, and wait for them to push on in. It's Rai to get aggressive right now, as it appears Converse might have forgotten about the lack of Astro control. He springs the trap, down goes the Ace, already used his utility, but Thunder cleans it up thanks to the large ammunition he has in his pocket. C4 prepped by Anarchy. This could bring the man count back, or at least into equilibrium. Thunder will open up another angle, give him another avenue by which to catch the Cade off guard. We'll back off for the moment. Only 15 seconds left. Converse need to start picking it up. They can collapse with their advantage, but they can't waste their time. Ice Cold moves in. Down by Pred, though. That 100 bullets not enough. It might be enough for Thunder as they finally collapse on the remaining NCSU defender and take match point decisively.
And they were still able to get control of Memo, and that was the biggest thing overall. They didn't have to immediately push in through China. They probably could have just held that angle passively just to make sure no one could play close near Laundry or near a majority of Tetris and still have enough brute force with some of those LMGs and some of those grenades still alive and well to just get enough damage and guarantee the round win, which is exactly what happened. Despite the fact that NC State still had a lot of map control, they still won the opening duel and really had a lot going for them. It just wasn't enough against that heavy fragging potential we see time in and time again by Converse, and because of that, they get match point. It's a 3-round deficit for NC State, so it's definitely not over just yet, but Converse have definitely looked much stronger on this map so far, Carter.
Oh, absolutely, and I was worried about this going into this, not because I didn't believe NCSU could perform on Villa. We saw them do it against Akron yesterday, but just because these are maps that also Converse like to play and have played on successfully, that Converse might be able to eke out a win on Oregon or Villa. Then when they go to their picks, which certainly have a better track record for Converse, or in the case of Clubhouse, just a bad track record for NCSU, they might be able to close it out. We're in a dangerous spot right now, and I don't think NCSU can't clutch this. I mean, John, you were watching on the stream yesterday, but they won bank by Anarchy and Pred clutching 2 rounds individually. That's how they won it in regulation. Would have been a 7-5 loss if they hadn't clutched those. I think they could certainly win 3 rounds on Villa defense, but Converse have just made a much more convincing argument out of these attacks.
And for NC State as well on Villa, they did end up winning. I believe it was roughly 4 rounds in a row. It was at one point 5-3. Yeah, it was 5-3 favoring the side of Akron, and NC State eventually came back. If we were to see that exact same redemption arc, it would force overtime because Converse have already guaranteed match point, but it's definitely still in the pocket for NC State. They just need to be aware of that explosivity, especially in the final 30 seconds by Converse. Last time we saw this site, BDA just walked past all the utility. He didn't have a care in the world, and he found, I believe it was 4 to 3 kills, just playing Nook close inside a vault. So again, if NC State aren't fully checking every single option that Converse have, it could be deep trouble for them once we actually see that push be fully confirmed by Converse.
Well, BDA positing some deep trouble for NC State right now, creeping up red. This downstairs angle can often be the end of this setup for any team, whether Jaeger or Ramai on it. Drones distracting Taco for the moment. Another coming in from the bottom. He might be wise to this. The flashbang's going through. Taco may be blinded, but certainly caught reloading. BDA positions himself perfectly to rip a hole right through Converse's defense.
No one there on the first floor as well to help out that Jaeger. It's something that was implemented countless times by Converse, but wasn't even attempted by NC State. They thought the barbed wire might have been enough, but clearly it was not to help Taco win that opening duel. Converse, they already take the lead and can begin to transition themselves a little bit closer towards the southern side of the map if they want to, but they'll still keep their eyes pretty intact over inside of map, trying to break that shield. They get rid of the Vulcan pack as well. So those 20 seconds aren't going to be much of an issue, as Converse are still looking to rotate around the map and still just position themselves in the right place to get this execute underway.
But good shield reposition by Anarchy right there. I'm worried it might be exposed to the vault wall, at least via utility, or he'll back will certainly be in the line of fire if he opts to play there. But they're able to get maybe a pick inside a vault. He could play behind it successfully, but Converse are already wise to this. A nade flies in, puts him to 1 HP. BDA also poised, well, to move up main. Now that Rai has given up that position, there's some flames dissipating in his way, but they can start, or BDA can start. He can make his way up once that fire disappears. 30 seconds now. 1 kill goes through. Avian able to cut down Predator, sitting inside a study. That one's found fairly easily. Rai will fill the gap, but he's very exposed to the Twitch right now, and the only denial inside of maps is the Shumika grenades, but now the Tachanka goes. Drew with the collateral might be the saving grace for NCSU, but it's short-lived as Thunder cleans it up in books, and Converse take NCSU's pick by a dominant 7-3 margin.
Once again, just being able to ignore some of that utility because you have such a strong advantage. It really was just too much for NC State to deal with in that literal 1 versus 5. The intel game was still top-notch by Converse, allowing them to be completely dominant in the early game, and that momentum being built throughout that entire round as well. Again, it was just so well done by Converse to guarantee they already get map 1 as a win in the books.
Yeah, and overall, just a very slow start for NCSU, it seems like, especially on their attacks, relying a lot on just working a pick after. Initially, we thought, that early to mid-round was NCSU, budgeting their time well, and I do think it certainly was to an extent, but that transition into an execute seemed very happenstance when it did occur, and a credit to individual skill, but the team play just did not seem to be there on their attacks, and for the defenses, that was more so Converse just able to pick apart NCSU's defenses, but also just work and play off a lot of those angles much better than NCSU did on their attacks.
Yeah, and that was... again, you talked about the individual play. It also wasn't there as much for NC State in comparison to Converse. I mean, the round count, it shows that quite obviously, but just the ability to get more than 1 pick without being immediately traded. We saw the trade game be very almost always there. Pardon the bit of a stutter there. It was almost always there for Converse. So they were never really uncomfortable in a lot of those rounds. And a couple times they ended up losing. It wasn't that big of a concern just because of already what they built up on that matchup. So again, that was just a fantastic way to start off on the right foot here for Converse. And when they've got, all the other maps that they've been dying to go to tonight, Carter, I mean, they should be completely fine with this.
Yeah, I mean, we got Clubhouse up next, which could be a very problematic map number 2 for NCSU. But for us to find out, and for you to find out by extension, we're going to take a quick break before we dissect map number 1. C4 right there. Also some active intel on the player R90, and oh no, Thunder getting active too. The Lion can't react in time. The Rush might meet the same fate as before. A Salty G. One of your bodies is an NPC, and if Ice Cold can get aggressive like he is right now, he can take really solid fights. Salty Boy Jesus is now the only one left, and we can just go to a break. HP member now dead. Yosha and Stop Looking At Me, both only on 1 HP. Half of that falls in the other. Turned on.
No coverage for the plant to be completed, and IMAT will come away with a 3K in defense of the basement, as that will mark the third successful defense win for the Zips.
He should be able to pick himself back up, but you got to watch out for IMAT here. He suspects there's somebody on the window, and yes, they are.
It won't matter because it's IMAT to jump off the top rope up inside of Attic to ultimately put away that one.
And Akron, they don't waste any time actually going for that push. They'll take care of both of them. Thankfully, Anarchy on the coverage will not only get one, but both of those last two kills.
Right in, but more of the Pogmats continue to clamp down on Wisconsin's quick efforts in this round. Taco taken out by the nade, but Ripple now being gassed. The player in the deep corner can't cut it. Anarchy will murder 2 and make that 4 in a row uninterrupted.
Oh my goodness, Boomin gets thrown across the room. He tried to spot out that air jab, but Taka was prepared for it. Shotgun out for Ty Fry, and for the first time, it is actually the shotgun that does not win him the fight. We've seen him incredibly impressive with that. NCSU had their moments, but it really felt like Converse had the upper hand for the most part. They had the momentum, they had the confidence, and just round after round, they proved that they were a little bit more prepared to go to Villa than NC State was. That's kind of what it felt like, at least to me, John.
Yeah, again, I, brutally said this towards the end of the matchup because I was too busy stuttering. But in general, the team play, it was fantastic by Converse. They really seemed like they knew what they were doing every step of the way. They weren't afraid to get their hands dirty. It's a phrase I say a lot, especially for Converse, because they're a very agile team. They are not afraid to bring out the Jackal, for example, and try to roam clear off the bat, work those kills, and just make sure they've got an early man advantage to, again, like I said during the broadcast, just get that momentum building up, favoring their side. Whereas for NC State, it was a lot of isolation. Predator, although he was there, for example, behind that back shoe when they were trying to clear out Taco near living room, he didn't try to get aggressive. He didn't try to help put himself in a better spot to, have Taco alive on that round, nor did Taco want to fall back to make sure he stayed alive later in the round to help out Predator 2. It just seemed like a lot of basic mistakes, or just a lot of gambles that were being made by NCSU that just didn't really work out for them really against Converse.
The question we also had, Carter, coming into this game was, will we see Converse, have a couple of similar issues like their semifinal, right? Like those opening deaths that they were experiencing a lot against Ohio State. And I guess into this first map, into Villa, we already have a pretty clear picture that I guess they solved it, right?
Maybe, I don't know if I would say they solved it, but they maybe haven't fallen into the same trappings as yesterday. I think definitely some of the over-aggression was reined in, and I think that's definitely a problem that they solved. Lokirio yesterday on the defenses was sometimes getting a little bit over-aggressive, not necessarily the opening pick, but definitely giving an opening to OSU to take the advantage. But I think what we really saw here was just NCSU not getting as active as OSU was on the defense yesterday. I mean, look at, for example, BDA's Nook play. A lot of the times, when trying to move up red stairs, don't have to worry about somebody swinging him. He just waits for his opportunity, and bam, it's presented itself. So I think it was more so NCSU not getting as in the face of Converse on both the attack and the defense, but also, to your credit and to your point, yes, I do think definitely they reined in some of that over-aggression from yesterday.
But it's also a problem that you guys started talking about, from the onset of this game. From round one, you were both mentioning the intel game from NC State, how they were having some issues with their drone work, John, and you guys used that as an example as to why they might not have been able to get as active and as aggressive.
Right, and especially in comparison to Converse, they always had a really good intel game. And on top of that, they doubled down. They brought a Jackal. They were on top of feeding information to their gunners, and they were doing fantastic on the opening duel. There were a lot of trades here and there, but eventually it led to most of the time that 4v3 or 4v2 position favoring Converse. And again, with all their players being consistent and capable gunners, they're going to take that position any day of the week.
Well, one thing Converse, at least I thought, did really well was capitalizing on those openings. I mean, this is something that we've talked about as far as these top 4 teams, as far as what they're capable of, but we saw this in a very specific round. We saw this in round 7, where we did see some vertical play from Converse, but there was pretty slow on that Aviator and Games attack, Carter. But when they finally got that down, when we saw that nade finally connect onto Pred, we'll see that probably in about a minute time, we really saw Converse unleash on the bomb site and take incredibly aggressive fights.
Yeah, this was just a really good realization and really good capitalization by Converse on their attacks. I mean, they obviously were throwing these nades up. I have a feeling they might have known they did some damage, but I don't think they knew the full situation and that they managed to put Taco and Pred down both to 1 HP via these nades, and later on, as you point out, another nade goes on in, it downs Pred and puts Anarchy to low HP as well. I believe it was this one going in through Vault. No, it's another one later on. They were really prevalent with the nades this entire round, brought 3 separate operators that had them, so part of me for being a little bit confused, but John, again, as we saw, with this nade coming out from Thunder, it provided a perfect opening for BDA.
Yeah, the perfect storm almost. It fed a lot of time. It had a lot of NC State members just compile up into Vault. And with, again, only having those toxic smokes, nobody playing in study, no one playing behind the couch, it gave BDA the perfect moment to just walk in and look at this. He just finds 1, 2, it ends up becoming 3, if not 4 kills as well. They just couldn't deal with this menace. And they still had to also not only worry about BDA, who's basically in sight at this point, but also worry about everyone slowly moving in. We briefly see the Lion try to get his way in through study balk. There were still people applying pressure over near Skull to get that plant down. It really was just a gigantic mountain to deal with there for NC State. And with them not even being able to worry about BDA, just too much to handle.
I mean, that's the kind of play, though, that Converse, they can bring out. If they see that opening, if they get that down, they will surprise you. And as we move on to the rest of this best of 5, for NC State's hopes, I suppose, they just need to make sure they are no longer surprised. They should theoretically know that Converse will jump on them, that Converse will get aggressive. So going into map 2, going into Clubhouse, this is where they have their chance to stop that. I will send things back to you guys as we dive into our second map of the day.
Let's see how this pans out. Will Converse manage to get the better of NC State with some of those aggressive plays like we saw on Villa, or will NCSU, starting out on their defenses, maybe be a little bit more active and in the face of Converse? I mean, certainly to defend many of these sites on Clubhouse, like Gym Bedroom and Cash, you definitely need to be a little bit aggressive when it comes to the positioning you hold.
And especially when you normally don't have something like the Gridlock or Nomad/0 on the board to go for that flank watch, it's normally just drones. That could be helpful for both teams when they're on the defense if they need to go and try to retake a part of the map. If no one's fully aware of them opting to go for that, that could be a huge play being made for either NC State or Converse. But starting with the bans, first and foremost, things look pretty normal. We have the Thatcher available, so Bandit/Kai tricking could be a gigantic option for NC State, especially in this first half. Not too surprised about that. And really everything so far, again, it just looks pretty normal in terms of the bans. I could imagine we see either that Valkyrie or the Mira up next here on this ban set because, well, it's already banned, Carter, because probably, well, we didn't mention it.
Yeah. I imagine Valk will probably be the next ban just because Mira is a little bit more situational on Clubhouse. Yep, Valkyrie is just overall, and this goes for any map, not just Clubhouse, just so much more universal, so much more versatile and applicable to sites, positions, setups. In this case, Mira, you can put one in basement, put one in bathroom, and Gym Bedroom to be certain, but beside of those 2 spots, there's not really many other spots to put those black mirrors, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Mirai, at least in the most specific of circumstances, from NCSU.
Well, it seems like Church and Arsenal is going to be up on the board first for NC State. They've got a castle on the board, so I could imagine we maybe see someone lightly extend up above. The rest of their lineup, though, it does scream like they want to just hold down for a proper anchor. They've got the smoke that can probably be stacked up over near dirt, for example. They got the Kaid Claw for the hatches for just a little while, and also in general, a couple of impact grenades here and there, in particular by Drew, I believe. So there is potential to waste a plethora of time. And again, with Hibana being banned, there isn't really a lot you can do to properly stop an impact trick unless you are just perfectly timing those grenades, or if you already have control of dirt, for example, and you just kind of swing wide. But normally by then you just don't want to try to risk going in for the impact trick, and you kind of have to give away a little bit of that map control.
Yeah, that impact trick is always a little bit difficult to get out, especially on basement if there's some vertical play coming through. But a satisfying impact trick, it's always nice to see. So we'll see if Drew manages to get it out, but with those EMPs on the board, anything can happen. No Hibana does mean you're gonna have a little bit of awkwardness with opening up some of these hatches. You'll maybe have to use an exothermic, as after all you can use are those two Selma charges to open up a hatch. And, well, if you want to open up every single hatch on Clubhouse, you know, you would need to maybe use 2 hard breaches, then use 2 Selmas, but, well, actually... Sorry, it's just... I was about to talk about, oh, look, we actually see a Capital and a Buck coming on the board, and then they just switched hard breaching ops for a second. But we'll see Avian go to the Capital instead, probably realizing, John, that 2 exothermics, 2 hard breach charges, yeah, might be able to exchange it out with some better primary utility.
It's the same thing. And with no cap, or pardon, no Wamai, there isn't anything to counteract the Capitao. You still have those smokes that a Thermite would normally have, and you also get the asphyxiating bolt. So depending on where Avian is playing at, those could be used to make sure that NC State really can't push all that much forward in to stop a plant potentially from going down, or just a general execute. Again, it just cuts off key portions of the map that Converse will not have to worry about for a good chunk of time, as those succeeding bolts will last for a pretty good amount of seconds. Anarchy tries to get aggressive with that Nitro Cell toss, but BDA just shoots it out of the air, clay pigeon style, and it seems like we're not going to have that 5vx just yet for either team. But BDA, he will try to make sure that Anarchy's still not playing all that close, and he'll confirm it via the drone. He's fallen back all the way into sight.
That's the only C4 for NCSU used very early on. That could have been countered for Ice Cold going in for that vertical play. Could have been countered for maybe somebody pushing in down main and trying to open church wall later on. So, I mean, it's certainly a high risk, high reward situation for Anarchy, but in that case where BDA isn't getting too aggressive, he can probably just shoot it out of the air like we saw. Converse still taking some time to move on through the map though, so what they could not do with the C4, maybe Pred will do on main stairs as the Malusi, but he'll also retreat back down fairly early on, as Converse are doing a good job in taking their own time and restricting their own quantity by which they can react and open up these defenses later on.
Now, the one thing to note is potentially if Converse aren't aware that Taco is still in Strip, that could be a pretty good moment to find some damage. Again, Taco's been that player to try to find the opening duel constantly, and it looks like this will be another opportunity for that. Especially now that Predator has fully given up main stairs. He's moved down to the basement floor entirely and has been able to break a good chunk of drones. Only 4 left, but that should be just enough to at least notify of these actual locations that NC State are holding on the basement floor. Again, it's just going to be that problem of, are they aware that Taco's slowly creeping in through bathroom? If not, that could be a ton of damage dealt for NC State.
I'll certainly know that somebody might be upstairs right now, as with the UMP ringing out from Strip, looking towards this long angle likely Converse are to hope and maybe just get an easy pick on the Taco. But they might not even really factor him in, though. They know he's in Strip. They know he can't go back. They're already getting a kill, and, well, it's on to Taco as well. So didn't really have to put in a lot of effort to take him down, and the castle ends up falling anyway. Now they can start fully looking towards the site. First nade goes in, but Drew is backed off from that doorway, so maybe now he can push and be a little bit more aggressive. Second nade comes through for Ice Cold, just goes right down into Moto. That's exactly when Avian drops. Smoke canisters going out, delaying some time. First kill for NCSU as well. Drew getting very aggressive on that breach, drops Case at bottom main. Anarchy 2 making up for the lost C4 earlier. Converse at a bit of a standstill right now. Excellent flick by Rai. Excellent follow-up by Rai. Ice Cold left all alone right now, and not nearly enough time to win round number 1.
Doesn't seem like it at all. Clock strikes midnight, and NC State, after having a stronghold of a site presence over near Church in particular, they are able to get that first round in the books on Clubhouse. And in general, I just think the last second rotations there by Converse is because they weren't there at all. That was the biggest reason why we didn't really see that successful of a pushback. We didn't have anyone at the bottom of blue, so nobody could challenge Rai properly as he was that close, despite the fact triple wall was opened up. The toxic smokes were there, along with several other defenders watching both the long hallway / highway of that basement floor and the triple wall itself in case anyone wanted to pull a BDA and just simply walk past the smoke to try to get inside of the objective without walking through Moto doors. So a lot of, I suppose, a lot of self-tunneling there by Converse towards the end, or self-funneling, I should say, ended up being their own demise there, and just not trying to double down on the fact that they could maybe try to push in through the side of kitchen, maybe because they couldn't get any pressure towards dirt. That might have been the final reason why, but still, it was a successful hold by NC State, so they get the first win.
I'm gonna go to Gym Bedroom as a follow-up for NCSU. Honestly, not that surprising given the recent trend of Clubhouse. CCTV and Cash, John, I'm known for my eloquence and my verbosity, but to phrase it this way, CCTV and Cash sucks. Like, it's terrible. It's awful. It's a horrible defensive site. Especially with the my ban on the board. I doubt we'll see much willing CCTV and Cash play from either of these teams.
We might end up seeing Bar at some point. That could be an option, especially with Converse already showing off the Capital. That's probably his best site, and I don't think Converse are the team to bring out the Monte. We could maybe have that as an option, but that just doesn't seem likely, although it has been in play in the collegiate scene when attacking CCTV and Cash Room, so it wouldn't be the most shocking thing we've probably seen throughout our entire collegiate season, but it's an option nevertheless. But looks like the option of getting Jacuzzi Wall is still going to be the main option here for Converse, and they will already be successful in that endeavor and can probably begin to transition over near main stairs and Logic, for example, or just go for the standard clear of, more towards the Cash and CCTV side to get construction control.
Thanks to these Thatchers and, the presence of a Thermite, these walls opened very easily by Converse. Barely have to give them a second thought or a second EMP to open these up. I actually think they don't use any EMPs at all until they just open that con single panel. So no EMPs required to actually open up any of those. Now they can put their full focus on dealing with this bathroom Mira, and it can be a tough nut to crack. You got somebody playing behind there. They can go for pre-fires, throw C4s out, but, actually, never mind. Rai has vaulted out and caught Ice Cold off guard, so a very risky play that might still result in a 1-for-1, but still gets a very nice opening onto the sledge, and if they can manage to evade this gym window, which nobody's even at, might just pay off with no repercussions.
Now we have no more grenades left. We're Ice Cold falling, and with the Salmas being gone by Locurio, we could have somebody reposition and sit there and not have to be hyper-aggressive. You already found that 5 versus 4. You're already stalling for a lot of time, and you make it that 5 versus 3 with a Razor Bloom catching Locurio in a bad spot. You've got this window player, but besides that, really, it's still a lot of funneling and a lot of stalling still in this final minute for Converse, Carter.
Whole lot of stalling, and really a lot of this built on the back of just nobody being at gym window. Could have seen Rai's jump out, could have maybe also gotten the trade as well, but really just some lackluster presence on Metal Bout for Converse, and now... All right, well, that changes things a little bit. I mean, not substantially, as well, they didn't actually create a vault hole in con single, so now Avian has to rotate all the way around and likely send it up main or go down Logi Hatch. Point being, though, able to even it up 3-3 and also start working their way into the site. A lot better than it was about 20 seconds ago. Rai also on low health. Main stair is in important position, but now the Taco's gone as well. This round has gone from bad to winnable. Thunder doing his best to open things up, but Pred in his comfort zone in the 1v3 got a biblical one yesterday. He'll try to go for the repeat now, but BDA catches him off guard on the prone angle, and Converse win the 3v5.
And I'm really shocked after we had all of NC State have such a beautiful opening round, stopping the mirror window from being destroyed, removing all the grenades, and a good chunk of that vertical play if someone were to play near main stairs. They still refuse to hold the actual mirror window. That would have been incredibly successful at making sure nobody could walk past the Jacuzzi wall. You can still have somebody sit on top of main or playing near Logi, for example, and get that double swing in case your player ends up dying near the mirror window. So it's still that safety net that would be better to have than just trying to completely ignore it. I feel like NC State were still trying to hyper-focus on Avian just solo pushing over across the map near Cash Room, where if we had somebody just probably be a bit more lackadaisical and just have it in the back of their mind that it is an option and just wait for Avian to make that first move in a disadvantageous position, NC State probably would have had much more success, on that round, especially since they already had the 5v3.
Basement was was a much more successful round, and maybe, John, that'll translate to bar and stage, which is kind of on the same x-axis as basement. This is not a site that we see all too often, mostly because kind of like CCTV, it's not great. But I think that just goes to show how awful of a site CCTV is with a Wamai band and a Thatcher up, as opposed to bar stage, being some revolutionary site. I mean, you can defend it, but you need to hold this top floor, and I imagine we'll see a lot of focus from Converse in the early round as a result.
Yeah, it's almost like a necessity full-fledged. You want to take that top floor and just kind of hold for it as long as humanly possible, especially with the necessity of also having to go extend probably in through Shrip at some point, or at least rotate as the attacking team. You can't just only focus on this top floor, but a good chunk of your time will be spent on that. But maybe Converse might actually just say, I don't care about the top floor. They might try to go for something more direct. They don't have any vert players. They've got a ton of hard breach. They can get this back stock wall opened up leading in a stage, and they've got the Osa, so the plant potential, it's definitely there, especially if Rai cannot do much with these yokais.
That is true, but we need to see some players positioned to watch that con hatch, which I will say, though, even though that is a very strong position for the defense to play, it's soft right now. Nobody's opened it up, so if Converse do go for a stage plant, which, I mean, things might change, but it looks like they are right now. The key angle that NCSU have to deny, at least vertically speaking, not available until they go open it up, and BDA could vault on a metal balk and watch that side until NCSU maybe reposition. All they have is this angle held at the forefront by Rai and at the back by Taco. Converse have already done quite a bit of work to get themselves set up.
Doesn't seem like there's much general vertical you could try to play as well to stop this plant. It's definitely there. We see it being attempted to be made, but I think most of it has actually been reclaimed by the side of Converse. So a lot of this top floor presence is just going to be used to try to counteract players like BDA most likely. And if that Zofia dies, there is a chance to maybe have a flank on the board, especially since none of the Claymores have been deployed by either BDA or Thunder. So there is a lot on the board, especially if NC State can at least try to work some sort of pick.
Converse continually finding some intel. Oh no, might have been some lackluster intel to take down Pred, though, as BDA walks right into the shotgun of the Mute and ends up falling. Still a long way to retake top floor, and the round might be over before he can do it. Ice Cold has moved into kitchen. He's got 2 nades, but he's not going for vertical play. He is trying to catch the NCSU off guard in their back. Osa shield goes down, but Locurio might have placed the Osa shield a little bit too close. He'll have to reposition, move further into the site in order to get this bomb down. First nade comes in from Ice Cold, and there's that vertical that Converse never cleared. Anarchy peeks down and finds the Osa on the reposition. Now the Echo starts pushing up, but Ice Cold's never been dealt with. He's still alive until Pred puts his life to an end. NCSU holding on by a thread, and then suddenly pull it loose and win bar stage, with Converse maybe not doing enough work to get the bomb down.
Yeah, and also not having, I suppose, I guess the word here would be being reserved, I suppose, not having enough discipline on that round for Converse, really. They definitely overextended too much when they were just only trying to worry about getting a plant down. They weren't truly focusing on clearing out that top floor. They only needed about the first half of it in their back pocket. A lot of that vertical used to stop a plant would have been dedicated towards mostly just construction and cash room, which Converse already had. But because we saw Ice Cold not be able to perfect that plant position with the Osa talent shield, he actually had to overextend, which allowed NC State to perfectly stop that plant from going down despite those see-through shields. And we still had Rai as well being able to deal with BDA off the bat, so it was still a really great hold on that top floor by NC State, and really everything that Converse tried to attempt on that round, it was just perfectly countered by the defense.
And I think you hit a really good point. It's not that Locurio and Converse's overall strat was bad. I mean, you can make that work with the half clear they went for, but he just happened to reposition and go too far into the vertical that Converse didn't end up clearing. So the take could have worked, but unfortunately, they actually overextended from what they themselves had cleared. So overall unlucky for Converse, and NCSU can now say that they won bar stage in a collegiate grand final, which I don't think many people could say even for just bar stage period. So very small company NCSU is in, but a valiant one at that.
Well, looks like we're not going to be seeing Bar for anytime soon. Maybe like on round 6, for example, we could see the reattempt. But I could imagine NC State would want to maybe try to take that top floor as a win next time around, and that one not being CCTV room. Once again, Converse opting for pretty much the exact same clear they had last time on round number 1 when having to deal with this church extension. They've got the exact same lamp to boot as well, except I believe they had Locurio on the ace last time as well. They got rid of the Thermite last time with Avian rocking out actually on the Capital. Once again, maybe more aggression could be seen perhaps by NC State, but I think I might have spoke a little too soon as we have Predator just break a single drone and then begin to fall back a bit deeper inside of that main sterile position, with Taco really being the only one trying to hold out on this top floor for as long as possible.
I am worried for the castle for Taco right here, because it's not like he exactly had the greatest impact on this Roman strip last time. I mean, he's got a nice angle. He's got Drew for support as well, but once Drew falls back, or almost dies in this case, he will manage to escape successfully. It's just Taco on the western part of the map alone with no way to rotate back. And Avian just turned around and shot him earlier. So Converse have to worry about him, sure, but Taco isn't really having the biggest impact in this spot, especially after Converse dealt with him pretty unceremoniously earlier. And beyond that, I mean, Converse are facing no interruptions, and Taco's position is a menial one.
I mean, eventually they'll still have to deal with him. Having to worry
true.
about that looming presence of the flank, especially on such a stubborn player like Taco, you tell him to do something and he's just not going to give up. He's going to do that until it's either success or he dies, until his mission is accomplished or he fails trying. So as Converse begin to do the exact same thing, get that triple wall opened up, which eventually will be successful at least on one of those 3 attempts, because the impact trick, it was somewhat there but not at the right time. It's going to be that looming threat, and with Taco still alive, he could try to at least try to find some sort of damage, if not just burn more time off the clock.
The worry here, though, is if Converse are able to get 1, maybe 2 picks on the site, Taco's impact might not be enough. He could get the hatch, but Converse might have the site. If this situation arises, the first domino falls. Predator found by Thunder. There's the second. There's the third. What is Taco to do now that Anarchy is all alone in basement, not even in church? The bomb's about to go down in Arsenal, and he gets 1 kill in blue, but Thunder was by himself, and now Anarchy is all alone in basement. Finds the hatch. Excellent spray onto Ice Cold, but now that the bomb's down, he's only got intel on 1 player, and the other catches him from behind, coming from blue. Converse, another excellent round on basement, but now they're actually able to finish it off.
And because they had somebody work their way inside of blue as well, it wasn't as big of a problem having anyone initially get aggressive. And also in general, Converse just played for range. They knew the biggest aspect of that round that allowed NC State to hold down Church despite triple wall being opened up, despite people being in moto, was just the smoke, the toxic canisters, and the fact that with a shotgun you can play incredibly close and just drop people to the floor in the blink of an eye. Because they played for range, because they remained calm in those final 20 seconds, and because they just flat out ignore Taco, who again, sometimes being stubborn, it doesn't allow you to adapt quickly enough. It was the perfect storm, I guess, for Converse on that round to completely stomp out NC State on that basement floor. And although NC State would have preferred to take that win, I could imagine on the basement floor, they're not going to reattempt it just yet. They'll try this top floor of gym and bedroom once again, which at the beginning, it looked fantastic, but the end game, it was very rough for them.
They managed to work themselves in a 5v3. Rai making a very risky play that ended up paying off, but Converse really only major issue here that put them in that 3v5 was not really a lot of control on Metal Balk. They actually had control of CC, so it's not that they were worried about getting peeked from that window. It's, well, maybe just for some other reason, maybe focusing too much on other positions, but it allowed both Rai and Anarchy to rotate and play in gym and start putting pressure on the attacker on the Jacuzzi breach. But if we just see a little bit more presence for Converse, the only real issue they had on their attack might not even be a factor anymore, or even possible.
More or less might just be, again, the ability to play as that team aspect. I mean, just got Taco over here in the middle of CCTV just by himself right now. Maybe he'll have to fall back, but I feel like he'll try to hold off this position as long as he can and just try to deal as much damage with that P10 running. But no, I'm proven wrong. He's actually going to go try to listen for the audio, spots out that the single con wall's been opened up, and might try to play directly in that site, or in that room, pardon, to just try to slow down Converse. But again, the fact we've got Thatcher on the board, instant hard destruction for Converse. Again, that construction single wall, and now Jacuzzi as well. They've got Logi hatch opened up, so really everything is going according to plan in this first minute, and now that can allow them to gather information at a pretty safe spot.
Information gathered, nades sent through, but unfortunately not wary of those 80 S's. A bit poor utility clear for Converse right there, and eats up one of the very few nades they have. They only have 2, and they've just become an even scarcer commodity. Still watching some key angles, looking over at CCTV, but their control of that spot is not nearly as strong as it was last time. So Gym is still, or playing in Gym or that Jacuzzi hallway might still be a possibility, but there's nobody in bathroom right now, John. They've completely vacated that area. Converse actually have a much easier time despite the, well, still less control of Gym.
I definitely love the change, though, by both Rai and Drew. We noticed last time by Converse on their attack here for this site that they did not even try anything over to the side of main, so having someone play underneath is such a huge boon for them. And Anarchy's still going to get aggressive over inside a weight room. He finds the kill into BDA. That's your window player gone until someone rotates on around, and everything is still going quite smoothly for NC State, especially since they can still just fall back and now waste time with these fantastic smoke grenades being tossed out by Rai.
And wasting as much time as he can. But that's a really big pick. Thunder now needs to do double duty or triple duty on all these windows, and when he switches up, Anarchy does too. Repositions for a 2-piece on Gym window, but same can be said for Converse. Lokirio sends it on in and very narrowly takes Taco, but the Aruni survives with 1 HP, and NCSU's positioning is superior for the moment. Converse with no diffuser in hand, and the attack split by the defense itself. 1 on Jacuzzi, 1 trapped in cash. No real way to consolidate. Somebody has got to get this pick. Ice Cold dodges the Razor Bloom. There we go. Finishes off Taco. Knows somebody might be logistics, but that might be Avian's duty. Another Razor Bloom reacts in a split second and manages to weave his way into sight. Predator and Drew both playing reserve right now. The C4 rips, it goes up, but it misses. Ice Cold can go for the bomb now, and Avian can cover. He sees the one in Logi. He takes him down. Drew can't go for the vert this time, but catches Avian on the come up, and the shotgun too. The 1v2 recovery up the stairs, into sight, and into a winning position in round 5.
And still great information, or at least great awareness out by Drew to have fantastic coordination with his teammate of the Jaeger, playing up near Logi and moving around quite methodically. He was able to utilize that kill hole stacked up into the bathroom wall to find the player behind the bomb chassis. The info was just relayed off the dead player of the Jaeger, and then he was able just to hear the guy running at him through the rotation hole, trying to work for that kill, but he was just in too close quarters to comfortably deny that shotgun from finding any success. I think he maybe tried hopping out in through one of the windows, perhaps, maybe going into Jacuzzi, expecting the mute to maybe fall back and work around through the doorway, but it was just a wrong call made by Converse in that 1 versus 1, and now I guess my wishes have been commanded. We get to see Bar and Stage Carter for one more time, potentially, until we go into the second half.
Again, this is just because CCTV, without Wamai, is the worst thing on the face of the earth, or at least when it comes to Rainbow Six. Now, for Bar Stage, what was the big issue with Converse last time? Well, it actually wasn't much. They were able to get the half clear. They're able to clear out construction, which, when you go in for a stage plant, A-okay, you're chilling. But oh no! Lokirio actually repositions under bedroom, and the entire attack crumbles. Obviously, there was an issue with BDA solo clearing logistics as well, and ends up losing a 50-50 gunfight with maybe some lackluster intel. But overall, Converse were able to get quite a lot for a very little effort, and now we'll see a very interesting change. BDA will go to the glass, and if they're actually able to get the bomb down, the coverage here could be elite with that smoke and glass combo.
It might be a little tricky, perhaps, to utilize the yokais or the vertical to actually stop that plant from going down. You could still make an educated guess, and with a bunch of nitro cells, and with the yokais being more area effect, if anything, it could still be a bit challenging, but I feel like more of the smokes are going to be utilized probably for the post plant, or just trying to find a lot of kills, perhaps, instead. That could be the better option, but with 6 of them in total, you can kind of do whatever you want. So for Converse, looks like they will once again try to go for that heavy post-plant emphasis on this 6th round, but it seems like NC State might be trying to just find out more information on that earlier and just try to deal extra damage, or at least force the hand of Converse more, especially when it comes to trying to clear out this top floor.
Drew is spotted so quickly and backs off so fast after those drones fly through red stairs, and Converse will say, okay, well, not there anymore, Lokirio. you're clear to move on in. We'll get Avian to open up these walls momentarily. Does the first on the con single panel. He'll move down to stage later on, but now they've managed to contain the defense to this western side of the map, over by master bedroom, inside of logistics. They can keep them contained over there and force NCSU, if they want to retake and get that hatch, to, well, physically retake it against the force of the attack.
And at 30 left here, the back wall leading into stage finally gets opened up, and I almost thought Drew might want to go for the full-fledged rotation, the roundabout on the map, to try to find some sort of kill over near Secret perhaps, or even hopping in through Oil Pit towards Garage, but he'll think better of that. The smokes come flying in, allowing for BDA just to have this long range of sight without having to worry about all that much, even playing behind the Talon Shield as well. Really, it's a perfect setup here for BDA, and Lokirio just trying to slowly trench his way past those smokes, just try to set up that final Talon Shield once again, try to position themselves for this post plant.
And also trying to just bait out some utility from the defense, bait out maybe even a defender, trying to be the hero and stop the plant. But now that they've done that, the yokai start coming in. One on stage, and they can't really peek in and take it down without availing themselves to the defense. So this yokai will be successful as Converse get the first kill. Taco cut down over by Strip, but Drew gets aggro and gets Kitchen almost a second, but it's the rest of NCSU doing the talking. Rai and Pred each with 2 kills of their own. Avian peeks on around, trying to get the ace to get Converse the even half. He's found the main defender alone on the site, and the other 2 start clown carning down red, and the totem pole gets the better of the Thermite. A 4-2 half for NCSU, as by some twist of fate, John, the only site they got 100% win rate on was bar and stage.
But it just, in general, didn't seem like a lot of effort was there by Converse, especially on the top floor. I like the change they made by having Avian open up the single wall between both construction and cash room. That was a really good idea. It's a long line of sight, and when you've got ARs up against SMGs and better optics most of the time, it does seem really good on paper, but they still need to worry about Logi and just the fact that NC State sometimes they don't care. They understand what kind of options they've got, and sometimes they're going to have to, kind of like Converse do a lot, get their hands dirty, and sometimes just have to go fight in very unwinnable positions or just very challenging positions at that. The rest of the setup by Converse, once again, was quite solid. They still got the plant down. They still had a lot of long angles to play with, at least for the general site denial, and Avian was able to work that quite well with the 5.56, but eventually, one man cannot do everything, and eventually he failed via the UMP-45 with the retake via that top floor presence, which once again was just too much for Converse to handle for those bar attacks.
Sadly, we will not see Converse try bar stage out of the gate, though. John, I was hoping maybe they would try to throw a curveball at us in NCSU by going to it first instead of basement, but sadly they will not. They will bring the mirror, though, interestingly enough. I said that this is, on Clubhouse, a bit more of a niche operator. You got a spot in gym bedroom, you put it in bathroom, and the only other site you can really put it is basement, and, well, putting it in these 2 spots right here. One to watch, dummy to aid the Jaeger holding it when eventually, you know, probably rotates out. He can play off that mirror window. There's also one watching the bottom of main stairs as well to aid any defender trying to stall the push coming down main stairs.
Gotta admit, though, I like the fuse pick here by Taco. You are, worst case scenario, expecting maybe 2 nitro cells over inside of kitchen, for example. So that doesn't really give you a lot to be too worried about, especially if NC State have already, you know, provided vertical play, if they're already trying to get the hatch open. So that gives a lot of free room for Taco just to start raining down Hellfire with those cluster charges. And, you know, technically speaking, you could maybe utilize some of them to force back some of that roam game, although it'd be very difficult and a bit, you know, clanky. It's definitely an option, especially since you have, you know, 4 of those cluster charges. If not, you could just save a couple of them for that post-plant position. So in all honesty, it looks like NC State, they really want to rely on trying to get both dirt control along with that kitchen presence as well in this round, Carter.
And all else fails, you have an LMG. So if those cluster charges don't work, you have 100 bullets to try to make up for any previous transgressions. Drew's primary utility, on the other hand, the sledge, we all know what that's going to be used for, creating holes inside a kitchen and hopefully dodging these C4s. One goes to the left, and Lokirio fails to predict Drew's movements. The sledge evades it and actually just spots Lokirio through the thin gap between the bars. But, well, just like that C4, the bullets for, well, never mind. I was going to say Drew managed to evade Lokirio's sight overall, but he goes for the peak and ends up winning it.
Here come the cluster charges that I was just talking about. Able to break some utility potentially, and in case anyone's sitting deep inside of Church, that could be a potential kill as well. Still tons of time to gather information as well. Things are looking all right for NC State, I would say. Not the best because they lost out on their only set of grenades and they still don't have dirt control, but this is definitely workable, especially if Predator is able to do just God's work, I suppose, over inside of blue. But I believe that Converse are fully aware of this being a potential possibility here for NC State.
Now they seem to be cognizant of it, potential of what it could provide for NCSU. Dirt opening up now from Rai. He'll move over. Don't know how much of a presence we'll see in Dirt, especially because Avian playing there could put a stop to it, but two just dropped down the hatch, and Taco immediately silenced by Lokirio's SMG-11. Bomb going down as well. He'll start to peek around, but there's Anarchy on the coverage. Lethal right now. Able to get it down, but Rai is pretty much trapped down below in basement, and not long for this world. He'll leave the round in the hands of Predator and Anarchy, which so far seem to be more than capable of finishing the job. The Predator is low. He's got plenty of bullets to make it work, but he's eventually found by Avian. Now, the job is left to the Sledge. One will play down below, and Avian goes for the retake up top. Anarchy has to play double duty right here. Thatcher will hold the door as Ice Cold baits out the plant, just ticking it right now. Trying to play the time, trying to get Avian in position. The smoke starts moving forward, but time's running out. Avian will watch, and there goes Anarchy for one. Can he get the second? The shins expose themselves, and a beautiful plant and post-plant for NCSU and Anarchy, respectfully.
And because NC State still had somebody actually playing above the hatch watching the plant, there wasn't much Lokira could do, even though he ended up killing the Fuse, who was playing very aggressive again, trying to work for that LMG buff, being very confident in trying to win those gunfights. It was still enough. And I like the fact how NC State, despite the fact they did end up getting Ryra to open up Dirt Tunnel, they didn't just blindly walk through it. You're going to expect Avian to play in that spot because he can both stop a plant from going down, leading in through that kitchen drop, and he can stop anybody entering from Dirt, and that's just something you don't want to deal with. However, if you open up Dirt, it's something that Avian has to try to multitask with, and as humans, we just suck at multitasking 90% of the time. So with Avian having to juggle with both potential Dirt presence and that hatch drop, it just led to too many faults at the end for Converse, giving NC State that slight lead up and that post-plant position.
Also, I realized that entire time because I saw the L85 and saw it was Anarchy. I immediately defaulted to calling him Sledge. I'm just not used to my... See, I haven't the Anarchy I know. I'm used to him back in like T3 and back when he was the Sledge Demon, so seeing him on Thatcher, it's just... It's good, but it feels weird. No offense to Drew, but give my boy the hammer. I want to see some old school Anarchy Sledge action, hopefully at some point in this grand final. But Thatcher's also good. Respect to Anarchy for pulling that one out, and same with Drew as well. See BDA go to, speaking of NCSU players, going to the taco position right now, just holding out in strip for a solo roam, but something different from NCSU, John. We have a CCTV and cash defense, and with no Wamai, I'm praying Converse know what they're doing here.
Also, no Capitao. You don't need it, but it makes getting Raptors control very just easy.
Thatcher?
It's just, but
got those EMPs.
Well, you know, got to see something magical happen. I think the one thing to worry about potentially is just the bandit tricking here by Avian so far. Even with Thatcher on the board, it's pretty easy to do that unless someone's, you know, playing out on the window so far for CCTV, but I don't think that's capable. Avian, though, might still be able to get these Selmas. Potentially, there's the first one, but the second one, he's got to fall back. Even when you've got the bandit batteries and no one playing on the window, having to deal with two separate walls at the exact same time with those Selmas, it's very difficult and very stressful. So NC State in the first minute, they still get that plat wall opened up and then can begin to just work on something else in the next 2 minutes.
They do put themselves in a little bit of an awkward spot, though. If they do want to open more of that wall up, they didn't really do it all that well because of which Selma charge ended up being opened up. You could maybe have somebody push aggressively up red, which I'd not be surprised if Converse do. But also, interestingly enough, despite the fact that there's no Wamai and Thatcher is on the board, NCSU are going for maybe a split take right now. Rotating over to Khan to try and open up this Khan wall, which Avian might be able to bandit trick. He's only got one bandit battery left, actually, so won't be able to do that, but that will take more time for NCSU and also still likely mandate a clear of garage later on. They're really going for everything here.
No one even opting in to try to go in through Garage last second to try to better counteract with Ice Cold, because if you have somebody in Raptors, that can be a pretty prime position to sit in and stop a direct entryway leading in through the side of Cashroom. There goes the first of many Thatcher EMPs, but it looks like the Thermite charge has actually been denied. If not, it was actually the Selmas. No, Taco still has 2 Thermite charges in his back pocket, but only one, actually no EMPs left. It's going to be a pretty difficult situation, but it looks like Avian will not try to go in for that actual bandit trick, and he ends up dying. But the electricity of the actual electrical, I think that was the thing to finally put in the dirt, Carter.
Wow, excellent communication between Avian and Ice Cold right there, and NCSU paying for not looking at Garage. Electric Claw destroying one of the exothermics, but Rai goes for broke. No Selmas, he's got the AK-12 though, and NCSU go guns up in round number 8. Thunder retakes Garage and actually sees the planter, but shoots a second too late. 2 more on the opposite side of that wall, and they quickly retreat, vacate the area, and play their post-plant positions. Thunder's pre-fire misses, but the flick lands instead. Excellent counter by Thunder, but he's only on 1 health. Just 1 bullet from Drew will send NCSU to match point. Cooking the nade, though! A misposition by Drew! A misplay by the Sledge gives Thunder what should have been an absolute loss of a 1v3.
And still the hop in. It almost worked for NC State. That quick adaptation, it caught Converse in a pretty bad swivel, yet we still had Thunder on desperately low HP, still being fed tons of information and still able to connect enough shots to manage to win that confrontation. And with the Sledge just being so vulnerable, and with Thunder actually hearing that grenade pull being pinned out, he just went for the gamble, went for the swing, and again, because there was no natural coverage there for Drew, he was just lights out, giving Converse just enough room to breathe and still keeping match point away for another round.
I mean, I get Drew's idea right there, but man, that was tough to watch. Partially because for NCSU, I mean, Thunder was just he slammed that dude on CC window. That guy didn't even stand a chance. But then Drew right there, you're obviously not fully aware of how maybe lit the Jaeger was, but he decides to play it safe, and in that case, going gun up was probably the better option. Unlucky for NCSU, that was match point more than within their grasp. They were already walking away from it, and Converse just steals and runs right back. We'll go to basement now. Converse a little bit weary of bar and stage or gym in bedroom, but going back to basement, this was overall likely a winnable round. If they anticipate that hatch drop and maybe Avian is able to prematurely place a toxic canister, or they have a C4 playing in church, a lot of that play, which revolved around Rai successfully getting the bomb down, might not be as possible if Converse are more aware of NCSU's goal for where they want to get that bomb down.
And for having only a couple of secondary breaches in the hands of Taco, for example, which take forever to detonate, giving you a lot of time to try to go for the impact trick, especially if you have someone like Lokirio just immediately shut down Drew, so you can't be all that impactful on the vertical play, it's definitely an option to not see Kitchen as that much of a powerhouse position for NC State overall, but it's still somewhere they're going to need to try to at least attempt to get opened up early on. Seems like they want to go for the full top to bottom clear first and foremost. I don't blame them, even with having a lot of that anchor presence here for Conference in our lineup with BDA on the Mozzie. He can still get very active in that first minute before falling back, so just making sure it's not a threat as of right now is going to be pivotal for NC State, and because of that, we can already see that Moto hatch opened up and slowly that transition leading in over inside of Kitchen Room as well.
Hopefully maybe a little bit more action from those cluster charges too. Taco dying a little unceremoniously last time, but that 1 C4 certainly coming into play. Drew on the Sledge. Lokirio C4 missed, but this time BDA's hits and Anarchy down through the floor by Lokirio. Still getting some semblance of action. Going for 3, and he finds it. Taco trying to out-LMG the LMG king on defense, and it does not work out whatsoever as NCSU are in dire straits.
The Nitrocell problem being huge over in Villa, and once again, it's going to rear its ugly head on round number 9. Anarchy finally gets revived, but the damage, it's already been done. And speaking of damage, still tons of it is flying out by the hand of BDA via that actual commando, dealing away half the HP over and by Predator, and leaving NC State worse for wear in this final minute.
And this is going to take a miracle at this point for NCSU to win, with Pred and Anarchy on such low HP. So little opened up, not only in terms of hard destruction, but also in terms of vertical play for anybody. I mean, you know, Anarchy can use those breach charges, but they aren't as effective as that sledgehammer. They don't have much control to hold the long hallway outside, and everyone from Converse has already left around that B bomb chassis, awaiting a potential kitchen hatch drop, which is probably the only semi-viable thing NCSU can do. Pushing dirt as well. Avian's holding it, and they don't have the manpower to make that work alongside something else. So whatever NCS do, they'll be trying to make the most of a bad situation. Hopefully, at least for them, Predator is enough to throw things off guard. Solo playing down blue, going for a lurk. He might be able to take down the Jaeger and the Mozzie as well as Rai goes in. BDA catches one, catches two off guard. Predator's play works, but everything else fails. And Converse stop the bleeding for a little bit more as they take the momentum gained off that clutch and turn it into a clinical round.
It seemed like for NC State, they ended up jumping the gun just a little too early. That Nitro Cell, not going to be that great of a start, especially when mostly your only vertical player is the one to die via that Nitro Cell. And again, not being able to out LMG Locurio because he has less of the floorboards to deal with. Even against the cluster charges, it spelt disaster for NC State. It really seemed like, again, they were just putting a lot of their eggs into one basket. And because Converse were fully aware of that, they just better prepped against dealing with people like Drew going for that vertical and the general clear that was being attempted over in the side of Kitchen Room. Converse slowly but surely removing this huge lead that NC State had, and although it almost looked like we'd see a 6-3 series being set up here by NC State, things have slowly taken a turn for the worse.
Especially after that clutch, you know, maybe if they had won the next round to say, all right, that was crazy, but let's all get back to normal. Let's get things under control. We still got it in hand, but after that round, Converse demolished them at every turn. Utility, gunplay, vertical, positioning. Everything was done and outclassed by Converse against NCSU in round number 9. Going into round 10, got Gym Bedroom now. Don't have to worry about basement and... Well, I guess you don't have to worry about a clutch on CC either, but that's a separate thing entirely. Going to Gym Bedroom, we saw how you can get the vast majority of control you need in a very small amount of time with a very small amount of utility. But there is one little change for Converse. NCSU didn't run that bandit nearly as much, instead allowing Jacuzzi Wall to be opened up, and then Locurio playing off, or not Locurio, but the Mira in this case, Rai for NCSU, playing off a bathroom. BDA, well, when Avian was on the bandit, he liked to actively bandit trick. He liked to, you know, get a little crazy with it. Maybe if Converse get aggressive and hold gym window, maybe we'll see BDA try to catch NCSU off guard in a similar fashion.
You know, you talked about the bandit tricking possibilities, and I think that might be a small reason why we have Predator on the floor. As I mean, obviously they want to break the shield top red. That's a no-brainer. But if you're able to put the Roterodrome kind of close to the wall, that's not going to allow BDA to bandit trick. He'll have to fall back. You don't need to waste a grenade. You could save that for the final execute, and you can still get that wall opened up. Because again, with the MPs, you are allowed to bandit trick. But for right now, BDA, he's not in a great position to do that. We could actually see this CCTV wall be opened up if NC act quickly enough, but unfortunately they're not able to. So BDA, he might get a second chance at a great opportunity here.
Well, first Rotero drone comes in, destroys Ice Cold's red shield, but nobody's really moving in just yet. See the first EMP go out. BDA gives it up immediately, not at all wanting to go for that bandit trick. Plat wall now open for business at NCSU's behest. Taco also taking control of Garage means that overall, CCTV proper is within their hands. Now they just need to start working the players inside of Cash and on Red specifically. The Red player is always a little bit isolated. Thunder isn't always in a great spot to help him, but he can get aggressive and maybe get a kill, but Taco is the wiser in this case, and Thunder will regret going for that. Ice Cold will now fill the void left by the Frost, but he might have to feel a much greater burden. Active intel, a player coming up red. This CCTV cash hold is free real estate for North Carolina.
NC State just being properly methodical about this clear, and it leaves just Locurio and Avian in a 2 versus 5. Yes, Locurio does have that mirror window to play with, but if someone just rotates around the top floor, which I believe Drew might be attempting soon, he can break that Logi hatch and pretty much put Locurio in a rock and a hard space, and eventually he'll have to be dropped at some point. He's low in HP. There goes the hatch play. Drew just scaring Locurio at this point to give his teammates more ground to cover, and once again, this rotate, it's being constant out by NC State. They're going to try to get this Jacuzzi wall opened up sooner rather than later, just applying more and more pressure in this 5 versus 2.
Ooh, I mean, Avian knows he's got to get aggressive. It's a difficult situation to play the site, but NCSU tie things up on match point very quick afterwards. Still got one more round. You were confused by what I said. We're on match point now. NCSU just have to win one more attack on Clubhouse, but because Converse have won basement, they have to go to either Barn Stage or CCTV and Cash. And this might have been a victory for Converse, sure, but it was overall a very solid attack for NCSU. One that we were a little bit worried about, John. CCTV and Cash. I mean, we saw them going for a split take, not really focusing a lot on Garage, and we thought that was, or could be, problematic. They were able to move on in, cut their losses once they faced some trouble opening up that con single wall, and then promptly moved on in afterwards. And even with that 1v3, this was still a very good round for them overall.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I would especially love to see maybe more of that Flores in play as well, removing some of those key shield positions. And again, just helping to deal with the bandit on the board. NC State haven't been the best when we have an actual bandit trick being attempted, although it seems like as we go deeper and deeper into this matchup here on Clubhouse that the bandit tricking has been less and less of an option that's been in place. Still been on the board just to have something for the back wall, but it hasn't been a full guarantee every single time. But we'll probably see it over here on CCTV and Cash Room, especially if we had NC State opt to go for the exact same push that they did last time where you only have to worry about that single wall. It allows for a lot of breathability for Avian if he wants to go for that bandit trick.
I do hope we see a little bit more active garage control, or a lot more initiative in that area taken by NCSU. I just think it always leaves a variable on the board that you need to take care of by peeking over there and getting a kill. And even then, Thunder rotated up through Garage later on because there wasn't really anybody from NCSU actively holding the area. So that's one thing I would like to see, especially with a Flores now on the board. You can maybe send a Rotero drone up the stairs in conjunction with a nade to push him out of position and then maybe catch him on the other side with a nade and with those EMPs as well. Any ADSs placed in those areas are nullified with a singular EMP, which NCSU should have a surplus of if they're able to open a plat wall fairly quickly and dodge this bandit trick. It is a big if though, John, because as you said, Avian, or maybe Avian has either been good at these or NCSU have fallen prey to these easily.
Well, it looks like we've got the Three Musketeers, essentially, of this setup, trying to go and deal with the bandit trick. There goes the Thatcher, and oh, there it is. I've been waiting for this all day. It's the Rotero drone. Avian's got to back off. That's 3 bandit batteries. He'll opt for another one, but this is almost mission impossible for Avian. There goes the second Rotero drone. It's only a matter of time before we see this thermite charge begin to detonate. Avian has to swallow his pride and fall back, and that was just a beautiful way for NC State to get that wall opened up in the first minute, and now they can fully transition across the map and try to go for the exact same construction push they had last time.
And not just an isolation and excellent use of those Rotero drones, but also an excellent adaptation to a problem that they have had on CCTV on their previous attacks. So excellent from NCSU to show they're still in this on match point. Drone work, on the other hand, maybe a little lackluster. They lose sight of BDA on main stairs, and that costs Drew most of his HP. Anarchy as well, suffering a lot of damage over on plat wall, and they even lose the first pick. Lokirio domes Taco in construction, and he might be going for more outside on plat wall. Maybe he knows Pred is alone in this area, and him and Ice Cold could go for a duo peek right now. They lose sight of him. He's repelled down below right now, instead focusing on Secret Window. Ice Cold's ready. He's waiting. He wants this pick. He's hoping it comes through, but NCSU spot him, so he'll walk away with the drone and nothing else.
Great safety play by Predator, I suppose, and still being able to gather that information that someone is trying to get aggressive. BDA is still roaming around near the bottom bathroom part of the map, and Drew might be able to spot him, but he's very low in HP and has to be rather quiet as BDA. He's got the element of surprise in these 50 seconds. He'll begin to creep his way closer and closer towards the Malusi, but has no idea where exactly they're playing at, and this could be huge. The patience is massive by BDA, but eventually he springs at just the right time, and that's the 5-on-3 for Converse.
A lack of drones for NCSU, maybe forcing Drew to make that play in his mind, and, well, they'll have to hope winning this series comes in round 12, because round 11 is certainly Converse game. Doesn't even get one, does get one, as Lokirio runs out and gets aggressive. Everyone from Converse wants a piece of the action, wants their freebie with the low health Anarchy, and we'll need all of regulation to decide who will take Converse's map pick. Will it be Converse in OT or NCSU in regulation?
And I think now that we've seen CCTV in play twice by Converse, we can be pretty picky about the attacking style of NC State. I think they were just overcomplicating that. They had a beautiful setup over near Platwall. Don't get me wrong. I was thinking about how well they could implementate the Flores Rotero drones from a few rounds ago, and they finally did it. It was awesome to see that in play. Yet they still want to avoid trying to go in through Garage and getting Raptors control. I feel like it wouldn't be that difficult to accomplish, especially if they kill the Raptors player off the bat and the roam game then has to proceed and fall back into sight. That could give a lot of leeway, especially if they have somebody just purposely set up in the middle floor just to make sure nobody can go for a nitro cell play later on, or can just have that cutoff angle in case a roamer wants to try to fall back in through either Swamp, for example, or the top of Red. Again, it just seemed like NC State, they had a good idea, but against the way that Converse likes to play and a lot of the mistakes that NC State tend to make when they're actually on game day, it didn't sit well with me. But the early game, it looked great by NC State. It's just what followed up after that was just the big concern for me.
Well, what follows from that CCTV loss, NCSU know, unless Converse go to bar stage for some reason, is a basement defense, but what they might not have anticipated is Converse completely, almost 100%, switching things up from how they have defended basement previously. Instead of a more focused anchor hold on site and trying to contest the vertical, they've gone for a full roam across Clubhouse. Some players upstairs, a vigil holding down bar. NCSU have to completely rethink the game plan they might have been going into this round with. They can maybe they can of course change their ops because of attack or repick, but Converse, they're bringing out something different that NCSU have not had to deal with yet on club.
Now, the high rate of adaptability makes a lot of sense. Converse always strong on that roam game, so I don't really fault them for trying this on a make-or-break round, essentially, to make sure they could have a chance at winning 2-0 on the map pool as of now. And they have a lot of options for team play as well. NC State could end up stalling themselves a bit too much here when they go for this clear. But if you do look back at some of the other Church and Arsenal attacks we've seen, no matter what, they've always tried to go in for a top-to-bottom clear, even if there is no roam game present. But Ice Cold, he just hops out through, I believe, the single window near the middle of main and gets a kill. If not, he just runs out through the freezer doorway, gets rid of Rai, one of your only hard breachers. Thankfully, both the Ace and Buck are alive still, but that's a massive kill, at least just to get that man advantage off the bat.
And he's got the read right here. He knows now that he's dropped Case, that he's taken down the Thermite, he can play his life inside of Kitchen. They might be able to pick that diffuser back up, of course, but he can still just cause havoc inside of Kitchen at the moment because of that kill he got. He does have to deal with Drew up above, though, and he's cut off the only avenue Ice Cold has back to sight, unless that dirt panel was soft. So if he's committed to playing his life, he is all 100% in right now. Sitting close on the doorway, waiting for the attack to come to him. One will wrap around, go from the doorway. Does Ice Cold anticipate this, or will he fall prey to the L85? Yes, he does, and Avian, the smoke falls as well. So you've taken down the Thermite, but you've lost your life and the smokes as well.
He's wasted a ton of time, though, and that could, again, allow the weaknesses to show in through by NC State, that their intel game in the last 50 seconds can be rather lackluster. We've got Locurio opting to go on this flank, hopping in through the oil pit ladder directly into Garage, and this might be the perfect moment to kill Predator and force a bit more of a funnel-esque kind of approach. And oh yeah, he's got that perfectly lined up, an equalized position, and the case has still not been recovered just yet, buying even more time for Converse in these last 30 seconds.
Drew will just now go pick it back up, but NCSU have to do so much. Locurio just runs through, they all line up, and he whiffs! What a monumental loss by Locurio! Unbelievable lack of discipline on that SMG-11. That was the game right there, or at least overtime, and NCSU will go for broke after that opportunity. BDA wraps around, gets one, gets two on the headshot, stops it all. Locurio misses, but everyone from Converse hits, and we'll go to overtime on map 2.
Oh my goodness, a live heart attack was almost caught on screen as Locurio's soul, along with us in the booth, just left our bodies. That could have been 3 lined up in a row, but none of that clip hit. Still though, we had not a lot of angles to be properly contested with by NC State that would have just stopped Converse from denying that plant from going down. We had BDA just walk at the opponents. Taco had to worry about both someone coming in from highway and someone directly in the site of Arsenal. Thunder was making sure no one could properly watch down from the bottom of main stairs as well. Everything was still accounted for, and maybe, just maybe, if we didn't have that heads-up play being implemented by Locurio, that could have been a completely different round because you have the main advantage for NC State. You still have about 30 seconds with the case finally recovered, and you have somebody walking down blue as well just to have another avenue of approach.
Unfortunately for NCSU, Converse get their favored side of the defense. 4-2 defensive halves for both teams going into overtime. They get CCTV, the site that eluded NCSU to the point where that 1v3 clutch, now that we have the benefit of hindsight, cost them a 7-5 victory in regulation. And of course, after that, it was a much more dominant win for Converse. Basically a flawless until Predator got one impactless frag. It wasn't without bright spots. I mean, John, we talked about, you specifically called that play with the Flores that worked excellently in opening that flat wall. We'll see if Avian goes for the same play, but I hope to see, and I know you're probably hoping as well, more of a focus on Garage. The split push just is not working out.
Not at all, and I think Ice Cold's got one K-Claw saved in his back pocket, so maybe this Rotero drone play I've been hyping up potentially could get countered. It depends on the timing of everything, of course, depending on when the Rotero drone begins to detonate, where the K-Claw goes in through. Avian expects the Rotero drone, that gets destroyed, and tries to put down his batteries as quickly as possible. They are all stacked up on the wall, but someone's just watching the drone hole. Oh, fantastic adaptation, but no, it's the wrong side of the wall! Avian tries his best, everything was perfectly denied, but he takes the 50-50 guess, and he fails the quiz, and now the wall gets opened up still for NC State.
Oh my lord, NCSU getting blessed by RNG right now, or I guess Avian just RNG looking non-favorably on him, unfortunately. Platwall now opened up, and NCSU, they seem to be going for the split take again. They've opened up the hole on Jacuzzi. Perhaps it's just for flank watch, but they're dedicating themselves once again to this take that just has not had that much success. Even in the round where they very narrowly won it and lost to a clutch, it still forced them to just hop in through windows, send it through doorways, and bet on winning fights with the site players, and it ended up working out. But is that something you really want to bet match point on, potentially? I'm not certain.
On a 1-for-1 seem to be brewing up potentially. Drew's gonna probably have to face the challenge of BDA at some point. We've got Rai, who was over near Garage, but with Case, I doubt he'll be the one to actually try to clear out Ice Cold. He might just try to waltz his way in through Plat Wall, but speak of Thunder, at least, someone who I haven't brought up just yet. He's still roaming in on the middle floor, and is that slight extension actually here for Converse to help out the player receiving pressure inside of Garage. Anarchy now gone, one of your top fraggers off the board. That is huge for Converse, and still, it's a lot of sluggishness by NC State, despite the fact they were looking relatively clean in that first minute.
With that Thatcher gone, those EMPs were the key to opening up Plat Wall, but also, since it's a split take, most importantly, that Con single panel. They can't do that now. No nades on the board. They have two Rotero drones, but you bet your bottom dollar Converse will be watching that doorway inside a cache to shoot any Rotero drone that gets even a country mile close to destroying any hard breach denial on that wall. And NCSU are forced to do what, very narrowly to be fair, got them their first CC round. Hopping through windows and send it. They need to win the fight with Ice Cold. They lose one. They lose two separate ones on the site and are still in the disadvantage. Drew goes huge, though. Staying inside of Khan. He's watching the flank, too. It's only Thunder on site, but he loses it. BDA gets the best of the buck, and now Rai has to fall off and loses it to Brain Dead Aimer as well. Match point for Converse. One clubhouse attack from 2-0 in the series.
And that has been the only thing to favor NC State when they opt to go for a general take for that CCTV defense, is just hopping in the windows and just praying to whoever is willing to listen that they are going to win those gunfights, which in that situation, it didn't happen enough to really get that overwhelming lead. I personally would have maybe preferred a full-fledged rotation. Still being able to play in default might have been a pretty decent option there for NC State, and then having Drew just hop outside of the balcony and just watch over Con window, and if the audio is heard over and towards Garage or near Red, for example, Drew can adapt to that audio, but that wasn't the call, that wasn't the play made. NC State went for something that looked safer because of where Drew was placed at, and it ended up costing them the the round and now match point. NC State were on the cusp of potentially taking this map, and now they're at the deficit against Converse.
They'll need to win 2 in a row, one on attack, one on defense, one on that ever elusive attack for NCSU. They get to go to basement though, which I say get to go to basement. Bar Stage, as I said earlier, was the only side. It is the only side for NCSU with 100% defender win rate for NCSU. Well, technically the entire map right now, but NCSU were the only ones that played it, and that's why I had that qualifier. So they'll go to basement, and we'll see this same setup from Taco that, again, John, NCSU, they show us some great adaptations with that Flores change to counter Avian, but then they're stubborn in these other areas with this position Taco plays in Strip that has been just a non-factor for Converse.
Oh no, the Anarchy's
Oh,
gone.
no.
He's downed over near stock. He tried going for a 1. Don't get me wrong, if he killed Thunder there, that would have been great, but again, it's been a lot of risk-taking by NC State. And against a team like Converse, it sometimes isn't just a 50-50. It's sometimes even worse in that statistic. So you're trying to ride something that just doesn't really seem all that practical. Anarchy, who could have been really helpful for Kai tricking or just having a Nitro Cell to stop and execute, is now no longer an option here for NC State. And now Predator, he's probably got to get aggressive. He probably has to hold this top floor for even longer than expected, but I guess not. I guess he'll try to fall back earlier to not make sure it's that 5 versus 3.
It's smart decision, but he goes in bar, or at least that might be Drew. Yes, it's Drew who finds himself in bar with every attacker all around him. He just barely escapes death. Bullets ringing over him and Predator's head as they hightail it down main stairs and barely escape the oncoming storm of Converse on this middle floor. They do escape though, and right now for NCSU, that might just be the same as victory in their minds. They'll give Converse the vertical control they want, and we're left with, again, Taco. If there is a player and a position on match point that needs to come alive, it is him in this spot.
Taco may or may not just be the X factor here, like you have said, Carter. This is really everything almost on the line, it seems. Again, especially since we already had that deficit, but we've had this problem beforehand. Converse, they could just outright ignore this position, especially if another kill is found. The grenade is going to actually down Drew, but I don't think the information is fully noticed by Converse just yet, but I was wrong. He goes for the second nade toss. 5 versus 3, and technically a 2-on-5 because Taco's still at the site. This could be gigantic for Converse.
And look, Avian is holding his cross on the bar double as well. He literally can't help his team whatsoever. It's just on Rai and Pred right now. The former of which gets the first kill. Starts it off on Ice Cold and BDA in blue. If they can get this second one as well, this might just be a winnable round. Avian still holding the double. Taco has to win this one if he's going to cross. He has to win it. He's got to do it, but Avian misses? What? How does he let this one slip by? Now Converse will be second-guessing themselves. They'll be playing catch-up, and Taco, he might even get a kill, but he might just waste enough time. It's all on Predator right now. De facto before, officially now, but only 20 seconds to open up this church wall and move into the site. Rai is spotted. BDA moving in through blue. Predator shut down inside. BDA, he gets it. Rai goes for the peek, and BDA shuts him down. 8-6 on their map pick. NCSU, you lose the 6-3 lead. Converse on series point.
And it seems, Carter, I don't want to say this because it's map 2, but that map in particular, it seemed like a choke for NC State. It really did.
100%.
They had...
It didn't seem like a choke. It was a choke.
Yeah, well, to put it bluntly, yeah, it was most certainly a choke. I want to try to sugarcoat it for all the NC State fans out there, but I'm not able to. It's just too in front of you, I guess. The curtains have been opened up. They've been unveiled. NC State, they should have won that map, but they didn't. Converse, they remain calm. They're a very well-built team in terms of endurance as well. They have gone to full 5 mappers that have went to full 15 rounds, and they have still won. So just because you have a pretty good advantage does not mean you're over and done with this team just yet. And I feel like because of maybe some overconfidence and maybe some last-second improper calls, it was just not a good concoction for NC State. We'll just say that. It was still a fantastic map, don't get me wrong, but it really did look like NC State had that at one point, and then just it fell through their fingertips like sand.
Yeah, and hey, don't get me twisted either. I'm not saying that game didn't deserve to be an 8-6 because the play that Converse were bringing out in those subsequent rounds after that 1v3 and after NC State got to match point, that deserved to be an 8-6 match, 100%. Converse were playing very well and adapting to what NC State were throwing at them. It just, if one thing goes different, if we don't have that nade pulled, or maybe Thunder misses a shot on that CC window guy, that's a 7-3 victory overall for NCSU. But Converse, they were able to keep it together and based off of Thunder's individual play, but more importantly, them as a team, they're 2-0 right now. And if they win NCSU's next pick, they'll finish the series. But before we get to there, we'll take a quick break before we break down map number 2 of Club.
Yo, one bar hole, a bonfire place sound.
One West Main. One West Main.
One front door.
Fireplace, you said?
Yeah, in the corner. I don't know.
I'm sorry. One front door dead.
West Main dead.
Yo, in bar, in bar,
Maybe?
bar.
Bar. Stick.
Good stick.
Bar down. Then.
Ah, your best retake.
Let's go, baby. Good guys. Holy f.
I almost killed you.
They're good. You are fine.
You said fireplace. I flicked him with movement up here, bro.
It was sound.
I don't know where Malusi
She
is.
pushed up. She
Hey,
pushed
Boosie's
up.
downstairs. Boosie's downstairs, Bren.
Hold it.
Nice.
Dude, that's
Nice.
Oh, on dining table. Nice.
Oh my god. Good Hallelujah.
Alright, one more map. Wait, there's somewhere else.
What do you mean?
No, there's
No, the bomb spotted, dog.
They have holes above. I see.
Your bottom east is good ice. Hold up. Let me join your break room wall. This is castled. Ice, there's holes in your break room wall. They're looking at you from 90. There's a guy 90 through this hole looking at you. Nice, Ice. Good f***ing baby.
I
Nice.
love
Keep
you.
going.
I
We're in the
love
round.
you.
We're in the round.
Working.
Okay, triple walls reinforced. I'm grabbing the guy.
I'm reloading.
50.
Bottom metal.
90. Bombs down.
Bottom metal.
I have top.
Bottom metal.
Dead. Bottom metal dead.
Small office.
I'm so bad.
I'm not.
Thank God you have 100 bullets, huh?
I f***ing love you, dude.
See, I'm the
Holy
best, baby.
Dude, this man Loki literally precise called on this. I really hope they get that replay, dude. Yep, you go.
He's going to hatch.
Yep, on you. On the hatch though.
He's on the hatch peeking.
I got comms. He's on the hatch flashing. About to drop. 3, 2, 1. He dropped.
Drop.
Good.
Nice. Good Jacob.
Good job.
He's armoring. Or archives.
Archives. Oh my god,
I
you
didn't
guys
know-
are so fast.
I heard,
Terrible.
Boys.
Let's
That
go.
was terrible. Holy shit.
Hey,
I
gentlemen.
just want you all to know that I love you, and it's been an awesome couple years playing with you guys.
Would you just okay? Listen, save the speech for after we lose the finals. Okay.
Hey, listen. Hey.
Save the speech for after we lose the finals.
If anything for these last 2 days has taught us anything, it's that what's about to happen on this map doesn't mean shit. Okay, these last 2.5 years, I am so pumped to have been able to spend so much time with like some of my best friends in the world. So I don't give a what happens. If we win, when we win, it's gonna be dope. It's gonna be hype. But I'm just glad that I'm spending it with you boys. All right.
Love you.
So let's just get it.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Hey, boys, win or lose, this is your last chance to shit on my map.
Let's go.
See you.
Hayden, you just want to like
So we're going.
these kills?
We're going draft. We're going
Let's get
draft.
these kills, huh?
Let's just like I don't know, get the kills.
Me when I get kills. Hey, look, I got one.
Okay.
You got Grant. No, Grant. Go no, Grant. You have nades.
Grant,
You can
Grant, I'm telling you,
and you can sneak in somewhere.
I pee my pants when I'm playing China and somebody's in mud. I just want you to know that. So
yeah. That's what I'm gonna try and get to.
we don't have diffuser. We don't have a diffuser. We have to go for kills.
Both bar.
One dead.
He's close.
That's one bar. It's a goal, Yana.
You're so chilling. Elevator hatches.
It's up on me.
Two walk down.
I'm helping you.
Oh my god, that was so.
Dude, I just timing the out of these guys.
You honestly fucking dead. You really did. I was like, we're me and Hayden.
You said Andrew Hayden.
Fred,
I knew.
It's my last smoke.
It was just one. Two.
Andrew, you're on cam. Under the hatch by like the lamp.
Archives.
Oh, nice try. There we go.
Wait, how do we adapt to you? How do we want to fix this? They didn't go windows until very late. They literally all just stack spiral.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to
We
fix
just
it other
play
than
like.
kill him.
Yeah, I guess so.
20 seconds.
Janitor.
Oh my god!
I f***ing love y'all. Oh my god.
Well, map 2 was a tougher one to watch there. I mean, that one, of course, Converse putting up some impressive performances, everyone contributing in terms of the fragging potential. But when you think about Clubhouse, I think what's going to stick in our minds for the longest time is the rounds that NCSU let slip away.
100%. Like I couldn't say it better or in a different way. That describes it perfectly. I know we have some of these rounds chalked up to throw, but when you think about those rounds that we let slip away, I mean, John, you know what I'm thinking. We're thinking about that Thunder 1v3. We couldn't stop talking about it after we, cut back to our faces, gave our little rundown. That's the round that was sticking out like a sore thumb in my mind.
Yeah, that was the biggest choke by Drew. I hate to call somebody out like that, especially someone who I've met in person, I, enjoy talking with from time to time, but that was just not a good position to go and play for the nade. Eventually we'll get to see the play unfold before us, but we had a lot of clean rounds all together by NC State, and then they just started doing some monkey stuff, as we would say, from time to time, going a little too ape here and there, and that Thunder play in particular, that was just really the golden egg out of all of it, I suppose. We'll see it here. Predator, he dies to a very untimely shot, I will admit, but then the grenade, just not in a good spot to toss at. You either play underneath near lobby and force the Jaeger to fall back down, or you just don't throw the grenade. One or the other. Not what Drew opted to go for there.
And the thing here, right, is as a map, right, it looked like NC State had the victory in their grasp. 6-3 at one point, really off the back of a final defensive round to kick off the half. A really well put together bar defense that, like you guys both mentioned during the cast, that we don't get to see very often, Carter, and they actually put it together quite well with a combination of a vertical extension and some horizontal pressure too.
Oh yeah, it was a very well played bar extension. Sometimes it was won a little bit by some mispositioning by Converse, I will say, but definitely that second round was overall just really solid play for them on that offsite and making the most of CCTV not being favorable. But again, it also brings up some confusing things by NCSU. We talked about as a hypothetical reason for either going bar on stage, for all we know, could be a completely different reason. But one reason we talked about was CCTV being weak, just in general, but also on top of the Wamai being banned. But then when they attack CCTV later, they don't go after the very weakened spot in Garage. There was some great individual play on NCSU and also some team play in those defenses on bar stage. But on those attacks, and even on some of those defenses as well, like basement, there was just some confusing things that never really changed despite their failure.
Well, I like that you mentioned team play, because for Converse, that to me was the thing most impressive, right? Obviously, something that was great on Villa and translated well to Clubhouse, not only in the way they played out each round, but if you look at the sheer fragging potential, the sheer numbers each player was putting up, it was well spread out. Everyone was contributing very positively. But one player in particular, we've already mentioned him, Thunder, had a very special play, a very special clutch, John, that you've already mentioned, but we're going to take a look at a little bit more in depth now in this round. In round number 8, NC State, they move their way in, they get this bomb down, and then Thunder puts on a performance.
Yeah, I mean, we started out with, the realization by the side of NC State that they've got to get in the building, whether that be through a window or whatnot, and then they managed to win all their gunfights. Thunder has to retake the site from Rafters, finds 1 kill, but whiffs on Predator. He gets to go back in the window. Looks good on paper, right? Wrong. You can never count out Thunder. He lands a nasty shot onto Predator. He's on about 10 HP. Drew's thinking, well, maybe I could go for a grenade toss-up. I've got all of this room to breathe, but he closes the gap. It barely cut off, but we all watched the stream. We all know what happened there, Jonah. That was not a gunfight that was won by Drew. It was Thunder to smoke his pack, evade the grenade, and get the defuse down.
And you know what's interesting about that as well? It's one of those clutches that really shows a failure on almost every single front, but spread out. First one, it shows the problem of the push NCSU went for, letting the garage control slip by because they had to jump through windows and just make the most of a bad situation. Then it shows maybe not an individual failing, but more so a success on Thunder, just going huge in a clutch situation. And then you have an individual failing with that nade. It's very rare that we see a clutch have 3 different points that were all either big selling points or distinct failures in their own right, but it was a very interesting showcase at what all can go wrong or go right in a 1vx.
Well, our third map of the day is Oregon, a map that could put Converse on the top, could solidify themselves as the victors of this grand final and as the best team in Collegiate. John, do you think that things from Clubhouse will translate to Oregon, or are NC State going to find a way to hit that reset button?
Man, it's got to be tough, and it really does come down to that reset capability, Jonah. We were all talking behind the scenes of if the mental was not chalked already for NC State, it most definitely was after map 2 because they really did have that as a victory. It should have been 1-1, but they choked too many rounds, and Converse were quickly there to punish. So if we don't have that full-fledged mental reset, that full calm down and just reevaluation that we're on a new map, new team kind of aspect, then we're bound to see Converse win out on Oregon because they are no slouches on this map.
All right, then the question remains, can Converse continue the dominance? Can they put this away in 3, or can NC State hit the reset button and come back strong? It's time to find out. We dive into Oregon right now.
And Oregon, a map that NCSU have certainly had some big moments in Collegiate on in the past. There is any time for, well, maybe to treat a map as a fulcrum and that we might just start tipping one direction or back NCSU's way. This would certainly be it, John.
I'll have to go take a look at the bands. I could probably imagine they'll be pretty normal once again. Maybe the Flores by Converse, perhaps, but no, they'll stick with the Thatcher. Not a bad option, because NC State, they were using the Flores quite well. Funny enough, that was really the only thing that was going, top-notch for them over on Clubhouse. But again, they're looking to try to change that. Both teams have a lot of experience on this map, but I feel like just at a standpoint of statistics, even though Converse don't go here probably as much as NC State normally do, they've gotten some pretty big Titan-esque kind of wins, especially against Akron when they just barely managed to beat them 8-7 for all the marbles during the regular season of R6CC. So both teams are going to be incredibly comfortable on this map, and the bands, they still look pretty normal for the most part. You don't always see the Nomad band nowadays, tends to be the Flores, but it's still a great band, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, the Nomad band is interesting, especially knowing that if you look on Club, Converse were definitely going for some more flanks and some more roams, or some more like aggressive solo roams than NCSU did by a wide margin. I mean, you had Taco by himself in Strip, but that wasn't the same as, BDA playing fast and loose in the area or lurking in the late round in that area. So interesting that NCSU of all teams opt to ban the Nomad when Converse will probably be the one to take advantage of that, even though Oregon might not be the best for that kind of play, especially in comparison to Clubhouse. Wondering if that means we'll see NC State get a little aggressive on the defense when they end up switching. But for right now, of course, they're the ones starting out on the attack. They'll have to deal with Basement first. And right now, I want to see if this will change, but we got Taco on the gridlock.
Wouldn't be a horrible option, especially if you can go for more of a direct take. You can utilize some of those track stingers to actually stop a lot of the retake capabilities, which in a game like R6, trying to retake the site during a post plant, it's already challenging as is. Having to worry about track stingers, nade spam, and LMGs, it's too much to handle at some point. So I think it's a pretty good option by Taco, and also the smoke grenades as well. Those can be nice to have as well when you want to go for an immediate post plant position. But for NC State, their lineup, it definitely screams like we want to probably approach the entire map, most likely, guild that full-fledged roam clear, because they've got the Ayana, again, they've got the grenades, they've got the flank watch, instead of just trying to immediately hit Blue Bunker and go for some kind of direct approach from there.
Well, we'll see if they do opt to go for that. Just as we talk about cursing the ban phases with the Wamai or Flores, sometimes we often predict things, and the teams will do that for about 30 seconds and then do something completely different. So right now, we're looking over towards Big Tower NCSUR, and there is one person over there. We have Ice Cold down on T2, sees the window open and can get a drone in a couple seconds. Does spot it on the rafters, but actually evades his line of sight. He'll instead just back all the way down into Pillar, shoot this Gemini replicator, but then quickly fall back after getting that drone as well.
Well, at least we have somewhat of a presence over near Big Tower now for NC State, having some of those tracks deployed as well to make sure nobody can go on that cheeky flank over near the kitchen doorway leading through a green hallway. Just that small audio cue, as there's no way you can try to walk around through them without losing much of HP or just, again, having to break them in some manner. First minute officially over. NC State just about now ready to go and rotate down in through the bunker doorway. So once again, everything looks pretty good on paper so far in the first minute. It's just that mid and end game position we tend to see fall a little bit short here for the NC State boys.
Well, for the time being, I'll be clear on this middle floor. I can get to work on these hatches with these X-Kairos, open up some important angles. Hope to see some emphasis placed on E-Box. We see Drew, of course, throwing in some nades to that area, but letting Ice Cold survive in this position, especially if Avian doesn't feel too worried and is able to survive there for quite a while. Ice Cold could be a deadly problem playing on this doorway, even aided by Thunder back inside of Pillar. Taco could deal with him if he's able to get this angle or Thunder gets a little bit too aggressive, but for the moment, minute 50 seconds into the round, Converse holding strong.
Well, still tons of information able to be gathered. Taco notices someone still on the barrel doorway, but is he aware that someone's over inside a pillar? That could be the bigger problem here. If they just only focus on Ice Cold and Thunder is able to stay alive, this could be a massive way to stop the E-Box drop.
Sending the flashes on in, but what are they doing to really stop the demise E-Box drops tend to fall into, which is, well, falling into a meat grinder down below. They've sent some flashes. They have Drew in bunker. He's about to get swung by two defenders, caught with the nade in his hand. Deja vu for Drew on Oregon, but it's still a 4v4. Make that a 3v3. Make that a 3v2 with NCSU boiling down to still holding on. Case dropped and easily picked back up if Predator Taco decides to do it, but BDA goes into bunker, catches the gridlock off guard, doesn't whiff with the DMR, no SMG-11 this time. Predator's got a clutch up. Did it yesterday, almost did it today. Can he redeem himself with 5 seconds left? He pushes on in, evades blue, but finds himself in the crosshairs of BDA, a spot no one from NCSU wants to be in.
And still apparently not enough utility nor enough proper placements by NC State to have an overwhelming advantage. It boiled down to a 2v2, and with the lack of information that was there and just general drone placement for those dead players, because they were expecting more of an immediate hit up on the site, it allowed for Converse again to quickly adapt and just change location to wither away that little amount of information that was still alive and active to just put the last nail in the coffin there for NC State on that execution. It was a decent attempt overall, but because we just saw, again, a lot of isolation and a lot of improper information for those final few seconds, it did allow a lot of heads-up plays to be made by Converse, which again, it's right up their ballpark, really, and no matter what map you go to, Carter.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Converse will always take that style of play if it presents themselves for NCSU. You know, you'd think Oregon might favor that structure a little bit, but it's also Oregon attacks, and with a Valk on the board, John, got to face a little bit more trouble on the roam, I think. I mean, do you disagree? You think we're going to see a full anchor setup with a Valk on the board from Converse, or do you think they might put a couple people off site? What do you think? How are you going to break that one down?
Well, clearly with the smoke, Carter, we are going to only see an anchor presence. I mean,
of course,
it's quite obvious.
Just ignore
BDA and small tower right now. This is definitely not the site. Oh, no way he tries to hop out. I do this all the time. If you get a call somebody's big window, you can maybe hop out of that single window in small tower and maybe find a kill. But I think BDA is like, that may work in rank, but it's not going to work in comp. So he gives up. I don't blame him.
I was about to say, BDA heard John did it. He's like, well, if he did it, I gotta do it too. Unfortunately, he does not do it.
Yeah,
probably for the best. Though I will say, they would have been pretty stylish. I would have been more than happy to have that happen in the early round, just for the style points. But probably for the best that he doesn't go for it. But we also have Lokirio in the mix, and if BDA doesn't go for an aggressive play, you can bet that there is a non-0% chance, dare I say, even in double digits, that Lokirio will try to go for something aggressive in the early round. Sitting downstairs in T1 at the moment, nobody is availing themselves to his MP5. There are still a couple players waiting to rappel in. And maybe, just maybe, he'll evade their line of sight.
Seems like Anarchy does not want to have any of this tomfoolery happen, though. But they don't expect Lokirio just to walk back up tower stairs, and he finds one. I believe a run-out was almost attempted by Thunder. He'll just be here for direct support as NC State are scrambling to try to figure out how they can deal with this problem of the roam game, which is still thriving here for Converse. Predator begins to wrap his way around from small tower, but doesn't find any shots just yet. He's being relayed some intel via the Finca, but I believe she now gets off her drone to try to get more aggressive with these grenades and that LMG, which is always so dominating in a one-for-one gunfight unless that headshot has landed. But across the ways, Lokirio, he's still doing God's work over Big Tower, gets rid of Anarchy, and that's now your Maverick gone.
C4 opens the wall up as well, scares NCSU for a little bit as everyone from Converse makes their retreat down E-Box hatch. You might be thinking, oh, going back to the site? Well, no, it's actually a dorms defense, and most of the entire defense, 60% of it is off-site. And maybe Drew and everyone else has just realized this. Well, they do realize it, but the execution is a little sloppy, unfortunately. Only 2 on the site, but as everyone rotates back, Thunder and Ice Cold weather the storm, taking 2 rounds in a row for Converse.
And something that, again, has been very almost non-existent. It's been very lackluster. I'll say that much, at least for NC State. It is that inability to have proper team play and truly stop an opening duel. We can go all the way back on Villa and just see how powerful people like Ice Cold and Locurio were, even BDA, in terms of winning out that opening duel on map 1. Now on map 3, that's still been a constant. Ice Cold, who managed to run out Bunker Doorway, ended up killing out Drew, tossing out the grenade, and Locurio just getting aggressive at the top of Big Tower, finding 2 kills with the MP5K. It's been almost surgical to the degree as to how well Converse have been on these aggressive plays, but that's been the same story all 3 maps, and we still haven't seen NC State able to perfect a way to actually counter that aggression. It's just allowing Converse to continue to play in their comfort zone.
Maybe NCSU might be able to get a bit more active here. This side is a little bit easier to read. You know that Converse, even though they, despite their inclinations to just monkey around the map, will have to play a little bit more structured. They have to hold dorms with a lot more effort put forth, and you can't really just, send 2 people over in Big Tower or Kitchen like they did last time to just hold that spot, but pretty unofficially. This, they got to hold on to it for a while. Maybe NCSU can predict that a lot easier and meld their attack around it a lot easier.
Well, so far things look pretty calm and quiet for NC State. Looks like they're going to go at the top Big Tower. No pesky mute to have to go and deal with for now. Maybe we'll get the call by Converse that they once again want to try to challenge some gunfights they probably shouldn't be going for, but they'll still win it. Seems like that won't be the case. And NC State, they're not all pushing in through Big Tower. They want to try to push their way potentially a little bit closer in through lobby, perhaps. Maybe go around in through side garage to try to deal with this person stacked up near the Z hallway. Just again, first minute, slow and relatively well thought of here by NC State. After that first minute, though, it's kind of gloves off for both teams, really.
Certainly gloves off. Drew's bringing out the Flores. He's got these Rotero drones, just sending them in the middle of Z hallway, though, or the edge of it. Finds a Malusi Banshee, but that leaves BDA behind the shield and those 2 ADSs and a BP fully intact. NCSU playing into the very setup Converse are bringing out, looking like they're trying to go for a meeting plant, and just now, they will start countering it, but they are spending a little bit of time to try and break down this setup.
I believe the castle panel just got broken off in the background, Carter. We could maybe see an aggressive push coming out by NC State. They also have the back wall being opened up via the blowtorch and maybe some soft destruction with the Super Shorty. That's a pretty big stretch, don't get me wrong, but what other options do NC State have at this point? Not many, especially since they don't have either that Zofia, that Ash, or even seeing the Sledge in play or the Buck, for example. So again, with a lot of limitations in this final minute, it might just come down to a slugfest here between both NC State and Converse.
Definitely so. They might go with the same fate we saw them suffer on Clubhouse, just funneling through doorways, because right now, those X-Kairos to open up the very wall they want to get the bomb down through is still solid, still muted, no X-Kairos available, facing a lot of resistance, 1 by this utility, but 2 by BDA, still in Z, who can take this long angle, and Thunder creeping up laundry stairs as well, is spotted by a drone from Drew, so that play no longer viable, and instead BDA and Avian, look at how aggressive they're getting up green right now. The confidence that they are playing with is unbelievable, and the timidity that NCSU have is also worrisome. Break open the double door, and Anarchy moving through. Rai-Rai's the one with the bomb, and we still see no inclination at all for the bomb to go down, but I guess they don't need it. 3 bodies from Converse walk right in their way, but BDA's still alive. BDA's unaccounted for. The person watching his rotate gives up the angle, but Anarchy rotates to the right spot. Takes down 1. Taco through the wall, but unfortunately turns 180 degrees right as Rai gets the angle and gets NCSU their first round in the post plant.
Overall, a much better execution, I'd have to admit, able to constantly be able to stop anyone from pushing in through Z hallway, and still having that multifaceted approach, making sure you have someone in the back of stage to better counteract Converse just kind of running at you and trying to swing for the fences at that point. We've seen them try to go and get really aggressive after that minute threshold, if not during the first 60 seconds or so, and Converse just weren't able to do that. They had to kind of sit, twiddle their thumbs, and really wait for NC State to kind of make that first move, which Converse were not in a good position outright to counteract it, especially since we saw Zortero drones just really keep away BDA on that castle pick and force him to go for an incredibly late retake when his teammates were already dead.
Excellent try by BDA nonetheless, and hey, Jonas, the tertiary side, hey, you're expected to lose that one, right? Huh? Anyway, so going down to basement, obviously, which should be a bit more of a primary and something that Converse felt very comfortable on. I mean, they were confident right out the gate, not just content to let Drew sit in bunker. No, they went actively against him with the smoke to cover his, well, not entry, but I guess his exit of the building, and just take down Drew playing in that spot, and then waited for the E-box drop in for the most part, able to work out, or at least keep NCSU guessing and keep them bloodied as they went in. So for NCSU, one thing I definitely want to see, it might not be from bunker, but we need to see some more solid control of pillar, and don't just bet on a successful E-box drop.
Maybe having someone go along with Drew inside a bunker, it's definitely not a bad idea, especially if you actually have to worry about multiple sets of ADSs, for example, over near the side of elbow when you have that shield in play. Just something to think about for NC State. So far, though, they're probably not going to be that worried about how things are going to play out over near bunker. They need to deal with the roam game, starting by moving their way in through small tower. Locurio, having none of that, just breaks a couple of drones here and there and just barricades up top of Freezer and probably falls back into sight. Still 2 Gersmots in pocket. Probably just detonate them later on in the round, or just place them now for just some sort of information later, and being able to concuss somebody with those Gersmots, it's still a good way to give yourself that slight advantage when you go in for an aggressive swing, especially with that bull hose of the Scorpion.
And especially if NCSU take a little bit of time to get the execute going, those Gersmots aren't dealt with. I mean, we have no Twitch on the board, so any damage to the Gersmots would be incidental via a frag grenade, so could very well make NCSU's stomach an even slower attack if they keep with the pace they've been going with on Oregon so far. We'll have to see. We don't even know where exactly they want to take this from yet. We saw them start over by small tower, but almost half the round gone and no hard breaching done, no even real presence on the middle floor until just now, where we see Rai put down some X-Kairos.
And they still have the Hatch Queen, of course. They've got the Habana, so it's not going to take that long to get this Hatch pressure, but still, it's definitely a bit worrisome because in general, they will just have less time to perfect that execute position. And when you still have Ice Cold, who's going to try to go for these gunfights at some point, something you got to worry about constantly. The Terror Drone able to at least break the shield in the back of that laundry rotation. That's something nice for your troubles, but still having to worry about Ice Cold in this top floor, that's got to be a huge headache here in this final minute, Carter.
Converse have been very solid in these opening duels as well. Every round they've won, they've got the opening pick, and it was, well, traded in the first one, but it was still a very hectic late round that resulted in that trade. So NCSU facing a worrying pattern at the moment, but could still even this up as Ice Cold just sitting on the top floor is found by Rai. That's all well and good, but we're in the same spot as round number 1 with only 40 seconds left, and the entry into the site is likely going to be as chaotic, if not more. Pred finds a solid kill onto Locurio. We'll have to give them that, but even with only 3 players left, Avian has the angle into pillar and into bunker, since nobody is in or looking into bunker like they were last time. No presence by Drew. Avian can watch that entire angle. It's instead a very quick rotate, a very late rotate into Freezer, and a heavy utility amount expended as NCSU push into the site. No kills going their way until Anarchy strikes fear into BDA. Thunder pushes up, heavily damages one, but finished off by the other. Nothing for Avian to do beyond get not even a kill, just a down. NCSU somehow stumble into a round victory.
Well, at least they were able to win some of their gunfights eventually and still have enough room to actually push their way in through both Freezer and Laundry. I suppose Converse were not fully prepared for that option. Maybe they were expecting more of an emphasis over inside of E-Box and the back tower stairs, but because NC State had a last-second rotation call, they were still able to move their way down in through both Freezer and Laundry and still get the job done. And the one thing I liked is that they were still taking their time to burn through all the utility that the defense have just to make sure they can guarantee a couple kills here and there and not have as much to choke on when they're pushing into the site. I mean, for example, the back laundry shield, it did eventually get replaced, but still no one was playing behind it, so it wasn't a problem they really had to deal with. And also having all those flashes and grenades for the player in Freezer, it's just that safety net that NC State were able to have in the final 30 seconds, it really was the icing on top of the cake.
It did make things a lot easier. I think that is a very good point. The utility they still had was able to lubricate what was overall a pretty rusty and clunky round for them moving into the site itself. We will see, obviously, some utility to maybe counteract that Freezer push. We have a shield on Laundry that maybe Lokirio will play behind and rotate to later on. Maybe we'll also see Ice Cold up above like he was previously. I feel like he's going to rotate back a bit later on, though, because even though it wasted some time for NCSU, it still gave them a kill. It compounded the second one that I believe Anarchy got onto a player inside of the site. So I think once Lokirio gets back, Ice Cold should probably retreat as well.
Seems like to be the exact same kind of repetition that we had earlier, except maybe Lokirio wants to try to find something more than what he had last time. Going in for a potential swing on the single white window and then get spotted out in the drone. That might be the final thing to just force him back. Yep, it will be. Barricade in the exact same doorway leading into Freezer. Got a couple of Gersmots still in his back pocket to deploy later on. And Ice Cold, he's still as aggressive as ever, playing in the middle of back tower stairs, hoping someone overextends and maybe grants that 5-on-4 once again.
Anarchy might just do it, though there is a drone coming down Big Tower right now, but oh no. I think it stopped just short. I don't think they fully droned out T1. Somebody repels in, and NCSU aren't being careless with it, I will say, but they should be Ice Cold, and yep, Ice Cold spotted, so any damage done by not droning him out is mitigated by the Inox, brought by Taco. Not often we see the Jackal on Oregon, I will say, but even though it might be situational and might be an odd pick, in this case, it does have its uses.
Got the minute 30 mark once again. Habana still alive. No initial blood drawn for either Converse or NC State, and having that Jackal alive as well has been really masterful for NC State to just make sure they don't have to worry about anyone trying to go on that roam game consistently. Everyone has now fallen back for Converse, and it is an option for them to maybe get aggressive in the last few moments or something to try to find something to spice up their life, but I mean, everything just looks well accounted for by NC State in this final minute, so it'd be very challenging for Converse to try that, so they might just try to stick to the actual site hold to try and deny us execute.
Akira's Hachino opening up, pushed up a little far, but might still be able to rotate as nobody is actively playing it from NCSU. But this is Lokirio we're talking about. If he can play aggressive, he'll play aggressive, especially with 41 bullets to do so. So we'll see if NCSU read into that. But this Rotero drone or any further intel gained, incidental or active from NCSU, might just completely miss the Ella playing on Freezer Stairs. They know about BDA, and they almost deal with a nice position, but I think it's actually caught by a mute jammer, unfortunately. So that shield might still remain alive and allow BDA to play behind there. Further utility going out, and NCSU aren't focusing on Freezer whatsoever. It's entirely on E-Box, but Converse's defense is entirely intact. Ice Cold faces barely even a hiccup because of that nade, and he's got the angle to watch this drop. BDA too, but Drew strikes, ends up almost, no, not even falling. He's a non-factor on this take, and Converse take it drastically, terribly for NCSU.
And that nade was perfectly thrown. If we just had somebody walk down Big Tower stairs, Ice Cold was in a vulnerable position to lose the guy who's playing on Big Tower stairs, but because he remained stagnant and took way too long to walk down them, it allowed Converse to still hold all of Bunker and between both Pillar and that E-Box single wall. It was just the opposite of surgical there for NC State. They had two amazing rounds where they recovered from beautifully against Converse, and then once we go back to the basement this time around for a reattempt by Converse, it was just exactly what we saw on Laundry, an absolute slugfest with Converse that time dominating the entire kill feed and now retaking the lead 3-2.
Now for the final sight on their defense, they will go to dorms, which seemed like it actually, in classic NCSU fashion, at least classic in UCC, might just go their way via hopping in through windows and running through doorways. There was enough of a gap in the action when they entered the site that it seemed like they might have just surprised Converse. But everyone rotated back successfully in time, and they were shut down in the process. But that is to say, the defense did have to rotate back. There has been a heavy investment on the Roam for Converse on dorms. If NCSU can read into that and either successfully counter it or play around it as part of their attacking strat, maybe do some work on the site first, could maybe alleviate the burden if they end up succumbing to the failing they've had this entire half.
It seems like for NC State, they want to go for the full roam clear once again like they have before in the past. I'm really hoping that the team play here is almost top-notch this time about, though, trying to deal with people that are playing over near Kitchen, for example, over near maybe Big Tower, for example, because last time these pushes just fell flat on their face, and it forced NC State to go for really uncomfortable plays. We've got the drone game being decent so far. They're fully aware BDA is at least inside of Kitchen, but I'm not too sure if they can confirm if anyone's close to him or not, which as of right now, that isn't true, but there is somebody not that far behind, that being Lokirio, who's playing both between the green hallway and now meeting room, just to make sure he could back up BDA and maybe give him an escape route as well, or just allowing himself to actually hop in through Kitchen as well to double down with BDA.
I'll make a rotate for BDA right there. Love to see that level of teamwork. The late round construction on the roam to give BDA an avenue for exit inside of meeting. There is some work mainly being done by NCSU over up top, though. They know this roam is here, but they're not putting all of their tools towards clearing it out. I don't think Pred or Drew, the two players looking at it, have used even a single bit of their utility. Maybe a Gone 6, but certainly not the nades. All right, as I say that, Drew flirts with it for just a second, then backs off. It's all been on bedroom and likely big window as well for NCSU, but if they leave this pressure up down below, even if they don't fully clear it out, they might be able to still get those C4s, or Converse will still get those C4s.
Well, another nade is tossed out, but Lokirio is able to dodge it. Drew not able to dodge the bullets, though, will get down. Picked back up by the own Finka boost, but Ice Cold is there to greet Predator, still giving that man advantage. Not for very long, though. Anarchy is eventually able to fall away against Thunder, but still a very tough predicament here for NC State, especially with Avian still holding down the top of White like it's nobody's business.
Now forced to go through these doorways. Taco's got to win this one, but it's all coming up. Converse, he gets one, he gets two with the flick, 180 degrees, but there's too much to handle, too much information overload, and Converse end their defensive half, 4-2.
And, you know, although I've personally been a little bit harsh, I'd say, in my own mind to NC State, if we're playing devil's advocate, it is a pretty default split going in 4-2 on your attacks for Oregon. But I feel like, especially now at attacker repick, that can't be as large of an excuse that you can make so as you probably could last season, for example, especially with how well Converse play on their attacks. NC State, I feel at the very least, probably needed that 3-3 split just to guarantee they've got a really solid chance at doing well on their second half. And if not guaranteeing overtime, maybe potentially winning out regulation 7-5, for example. Things are really not looking good on paper as of right now for NC State, and they have got to change something up drastically starting out in the second half.
See how those changes manifest on their defenses. If there are any changes, to be fair, we kept talking about NCSU and certain strats they'd go for, and despite their seemingly consistent failings on Clubhouse, they never really changed them up all that much. So there is a little bit of time to maybe experiment with a different style of play. You have that Valk on the board. NCSU haven't been a big fan or haven't really leaned into those more loose, aggressive roams on the top floor, but with those black eye cameras, you could maybe invest a little bit more in Anarchy or Taco playing off-site. Even though he has been having the best day, he is the one on NCSU to be the most aggressive, and in that, I mean, be at the forefront and create space. This man is not a lurker. This man will be at the front, and even if he might not be successful, if he can buy his team some time and doing that, not necessarily by, holding down meeting, but just by being unpredictable and playing off of intel, it could be enough to throw Converse off their game.
Seems like for NC State, they want to go for a full-fledged roam on this basement defense, just trying to waste as much away from Converse, whether that be drones, players, general utility, etc., etc. Something just to weaken the side of Converse. It's not a bad option. I was really going to question if Converse maybe wanted to go in for a full-fledged rush inside a blue bunker because of how free that part of the map can be to take, especially if no one's playing directly on the hatch near E-Box or playing in the back of Pillar. But for Converse, nope, they'll just opt to go in for a mostly standard clear, running out the Jackal as well, just to try to quickly deal with this roam game and not waste as much time on this top and middle floor.
Taco probably happy he didn't go for any kind of far out roam because of the presence of that Jackal. Drew playing a little bit far up in Big Tower right now. Likely will be found by this drone. Well, assuming Thunder doesn't misplay this, but he does spot the mute, and Drew probably not going to be able to get the play he wants. Maybe see forward if Thunder decided to repel in, but he'll hop down and play things much safer. Lose a drone in the end, but hey, you know he's there. You know Drew is going to probably rotate back now. You're probably chilling for the most part. You can now fully focus on clearing out this middle floor with the Melusi and the Valkyrie, and so far, they're able to put an Kairos on that wall or get BDA in this position up Z. Might not be too long before this roam collapses or retreats.
There's a really good chance that we end up seeing the Melusi fall here because there's just no option for Anarchy. Yep, that is going to be matter of fact. Taco is there at a good time to get rid of Thunder, so the Iana is gone, but it's going to be a really risky play here for Taco out in the open meeting room, and yep, that's going to put him in the grave. Lokir is there with the Type 89. Predator not too far behind, but just gets demolished by BDA, and now all the roam game, it's either gone or has fallen back, leaving just a measly 4 versus 2 at a minute 15 to go still for NC State.
It's not even like that roam setup was bad. Just with those second 2 kills especially. The first one on Anarchy was by intel, but it just looked like Converse. They had some intel, but were mostly face-checking the active positions, and well, you can rely on Converse to win their gunfights, and win it they did. Only Drew and Rai right now in the 2v4, 1 in Pillar. A bad spot to try to bring the man advantage back because of worrying about Bunker, of course, anybody over there, but also taking that fight with the player on back tower stairs is very problematic. They'll have to hold on to it, though, and that is just a terrible position to be in. Not their own fault, of course. Rai gets aggressive and takes down the Pillar player. With that castle barricade as well, NCSU actually have a little bit of freedom to play there. Well, I didn't count on the nade, so that is very unlucky for Rai and great thinking by Avian. But as they go through Eatbox, Drew is just around the corner. He'll instead rotate out, maybe catch them off guard, but that's exactly what Avian was expecting. Drew second guesses himself, but Avian guesses right.
Well, and once again, I mean, a pretty overall methodical clear by Converse. They don't really waste much of their time. They gather tons of intel, both the drones, the Inox scanner. They're not slouches on the roam clear. Yet NC State still try to challenge them directly. I can't fully blame them because you think with no Wamai, you kind of have to go on that full-fledged roam extension. And because it is NC State's ban, that's probably what they were anticipating to do from the get-go. They just probably weren't expecting to lose all those head-to-head gunfights. A lot of them were 50-50 and could have been had by NC State if they were maybe just in better positions. But because they weren't, Converse really didn't struggle all that much to put themselves in that 4v2 and win the first round in the second half as their own. And now they've just 1 round away from not only match point on here, but also series point. It's definitely a pretty hard pill to swallow here for NC State, I gotta admit.
Yeah, definitely a very rough start to their defenses, and might be in the middle of an identity crisis as well. The structured play has been working out. I mean, it has been working out, but certainly not to a consistently successful extent on Villa or Clubhouse, as close as that was, and they did have a 4-2 half. But now you're saying, okay, you know, we tried to switch it up, tried to throw them off guard with those roams, and we got completely shut down. Do we play on the site? Do we try to lean more into that roam? What do you do in the situation? We'll have Drew and Taco pushed far up, but again, I'm worried that there's going to be this second guessing in the back of their minds, John, that they're just not going to be fully confident that this could work out.
And again, the heavy amount of repetition, especially by NC State on their relatively off-putting roam game, it allows Converse just to kind of just be at another day of the office. They try the exact same thing once again with little to no struggle. We've got a very long peak being held by that single window over in Small Tower that could have been ran out on multiple rounds ago. It deals a good amount of damage to Ice Cold, but he lives to tell the tale, so it's not going to be that 5 versus 4 just yet for NC State, but at least they're whipping out a couple of different ideas that almost are working for them early on.
Yeah, able to soften Ice Cold up a little bit, stave him off from pushing on into Big Tower, though he'll retake a spot on the repel. He's not actively going in for the clear, though. Sends out a concussion, stuns Anarchy, but there's no follow-through right now from Converse. How does I say that? Taco takes some damage. I believe that might be from down below. Ice Cold trying to cover in the repel, I think, and it just might have worked. Avian, a C4 blows up in his face, but there it is. Ice Cold catches Anarchy with his pants down and leaves Taco all alone in meeting. Can pick Avian back up with that Adrenal Surge, and that's exactly what BDA does once the call comes through. But what could have been a really big play by Taco is minimized by the Adrenal Surge and made into a loss because of Ice Cold's individual effort.
And now Taco's got to think whether he wants to get aggressive, try to work up the stairs, or wait for someone to fall back down, maybe play through the hatch, or if he wants to fall back. A 5-on-4, that's doable, but a 5 versus 3, almost impossible in the current position that NC State is in as of right now. You've got Thunder knocking in on the doorway of Trophy, and there it is, Taco. He tries to go for, again, that gamble playstyle we've seen constantly by NC State, and it just doesn't work out. Rai, a beautiful reattempt. Ice Cold will fall. Avian is still there, but no grenades and very low HP. Our Addict might be held off for quite a good chunk of time here, Carter.
Yeah, Rai hit a few nice shots with this SMG-11. He might be out of the utility, but he is not out of the fight. Converse stopped enough for the time being, enough for NCSU to take a pause, know the attack is coming, but reposition just a little bit. They've got a crossfire on this bedroom breach, and Converse might just walk into it. The flashbang goes through, but so does Thunder. Takes down one prong of that crossfire. The other goes as well. Pred's left to deal with the white player, but then 3 attackers after, and they all collapse at the same time. Match point, series point for Converse. 1 Oregon attack away, and all they have to do is win on a tertiary site or whatever site they've already won.
It doesn't really matter what side, I feel like at this point, unless NC State drastically how they want to play out on the basement floor. But it seems for NC State, they understand the gravity of the situation, and it doesn't really matter what site they play now because they have to flawlessly go through all of them at one given point. They need 4 round wins in a row, Carter, just to get overtime. And we have seen NC State fall short even in overtime beforehand. So it's not even all sunshine and rainbows once we get to see overtime in play, if that actually happens, if we get to see NC State claw back 4 rounds in a row. We've seen them do it before over in Akron, but the stakes were much lower in this position. And for Converse, I mean, they are probably just riding the high that they have gotten all the way from Villa, to be honest.
Maybe not even Villa, but definitely reinvigorated after club at the bare minimum. But you're probably right. Still a little bit of that 7-3 Villa victory on NCSU's map pick still in the works for Converse. As I said, could have been a tertiary site win, but the thing is, with Converse winning 2 attacks, all these sites are open for NCSU, and they're staring at a comeback where nothing has worked. Nothing is gelling. 4 rounds in a row, they need to get where nothing is going well on these defenses. They'll try the roam again, give the Valkyrie over to Pred, as Taco has not been having the best day. It is still getting countered on Oregon. And these roams as well, also just not standing up to the test that Converse are putting.
Seems like for Converse, they are aware that NC State, especially with them going on a lot of roam positions, that basement could potentially be a point of contention, so they want to try to just nip that out of the process potentially early on. Ice Cold appears to be potentially glitched on out.
Unlucky.
Might be stuck in time. Oh no, he's back. Just kidding. It was a false alarm. The LMG King is still going to be alive and well on this round to not grant technically a 5v4 off the bat for NC State, although they probably would not shy away from that, especially since they need 4 round wins in a row again just to get overtime in this matchup here on Oregon. So for Converse, that was a big sigh of relief, and now they can just go back to the same old stuff they've been trying round in after round out.
Yeah, and same old stuff for meeting as well. We saw NCSU try to switch things up a little bit, go for the more uncommon split plant this go around. Converse, when they're attacking the site, they're just trying to open up stage wall to go for the plant, just trying to open up attic wall to make sure that nobody can play that hatch or flanks up through the attic, and that's it. You don't need to try to overcomplicate things too much. If your guns have been lighting up, if your shots have been hitting, don't try and overcomplicate things.
It seems like we've got the back wall finally opened up here. Taco is still playing right behind, I believe, the little half wall over near the side of attic wall, but a nice nade is landed by BDA. Minute 20 mark, and we've got Converse already with that opening duel win. The cutoff is there. Ice Cold finds one on the Anarchy. Locurio lands a headshot on a Rai, and in a matter of moments, it's a 1 versus 5. Again, the precision is so well by Converse, and it is more than enough to put Predator with so much on his shoulders to make sure his team can still try to win everything here at UCC. Thunder gets down in a 1 versus 1 situation against the Valkyrie, but really it's just too much to handle for Predator. Eventually the conga line is enough to get rid of the lone Valkyrie, and it's ended out quite swiftly, 3-0, and it seems like the dynasty of Converse, Carter, is still alive and well.
Yep, they'll put one more cord around their neck on what is overall, no pun intended, well, pun intended, a 4-0 season for Converse so far in Collegiate. I mean, we came into the UCC thinking they'd be the best, and as much as maybe some of us wished NC State to come out on top, they proved themselves the best in the end. So congratulations to Converse on their 3-0 victory, and aside from a small hiccup on Clubhouse, unfortunate to say, didn't seem like it was anything different for Converse.
Yeah, and even to think that maybe on Border it would have been better out by, Converse overall. I think that NC State, they looked much worse. I mean, obviously they lost that map and they tried bringing out in the comp pool, so things were really looking bad almost from once we saw Clubhouse and Villa as that loss for NC State. They kind of had to go above and beyond, and today they just weren't able to bring out that kind of performance, and unfortunately fell rather short against the Titans of Collegiate as of right now. Converse still take a very, very oppressive victory here today.
Yeah, and again, congratulations to Converse for their victory, and overall, an excellent showing by NC State as well. Over the course of the entire tournament, still able to get seconds, still able to get one over on Akron. They have paved a nice, clean road of success in UCC. But that is the series done. We will throw it to a quick break before we have an interview with the victors and a breakdown of Map 3, as well as the series as a whole.
All right, we are here with our winners interview. We've got Avian in the room with me. Avian, how are you feeling after that win? Congratulations.
Thank you. Of course, we're feeling great, but like I said yesterday, you see me here again, so and it was faster than we thought.
You did say that. You guys were quite confident coming into yesterday. Did the fact that NC State beat Akron, shake that confidence a little bit because you were expecting to play Akron? Did that change your prep, or were you confident either way going into the final?
It definitely did change our prep because we prepped entirely for Akron, and when NCSTU pulled off their spectacular performance against Akron, especially on when they played Bank against Akron, just the amount of 1v2s, 1v3s, the clutches. It was an amazing series to watch. It was also threw all of our prep out the window. So we just had to go back in our defaults and just play our own game. And our game was better, clearly.
Well, yeah, no kidding. I mean, you guys put it away in a clean 3-0. Clubhouse, though, is where we saw some issues emerge. What was it, midway through Clubhouse, down 3 rounds, that you said to your team to bring it back?
It was mostly on the defense. Their bar defense was just throwing us for a loop because not many teams play the bar defense, and it's not something where you super practice against. And Akron doesn't really play a bar defense either. So seeing their bar for the first time, they got 2 free rounds on us, and then we went down a third round, and then we just had to play our own game. We just had to face because we knew we saw that they were droning a lot. They were taking sort of time. They were being very slow with their drones, so we knew that they were not afraid to take gunfights with us, but they were more cautious of just walking in the building and in taking a fight. So we just had to get in the face, and that's what we did.
Yeah, it seemed like you guys brought over that strategy to Oregon as well. I know I've seen you guys play a lot of maps in Siege, but I don't think I've seen you play that aggressively. Is that something you made a conscious decision to do?
Yeah, definitely. After the adaptation on Clubhouse and how we saw getting in their face was working really well, it's like, hey, why not just do it on Oregon? Oregon's also kind of a get in your face, sort of like gunfight heavy map by default, but especially against their sort of playstyle, we just had to get hyper aggressive, just take the fights early, contest them for every inch as on defense and on attack. Just don't let them have anything for free.
All right. Well, I got to ask, how does it feel now to be the undisputed best collegiate team in North America and to walk home with a nice $10,000 prize?
It feels great to be the undisputed best. We knew we were the best, and after winning Series Stage 1, Stage 2, placing second, Stage 3, winning the collegiate finals, we knew we were gonna win this. It was just how we were gonna win it. It wasn't gonna be another best all the way 5-map best of 5 with Akron. Or was it gonna be we were gonna get sweeped 3-0, or we were gonna sweep 3-0 with someone else, and it wound up being the latter.
Well, amazing. Well, the final thing, I guess, before we say goodbye to you is another congratulations. And now to pass you the mic, anything you want to say out there to all the supporters? I mean, Twitch chat has been popping off with the Converse support. Anything you got to say?
I want to thank all the fans that have shown us support throughout this academic year. And of course, I want to shout out my parents for supporting me throughout my career, both my professional and semi-professional. And I want to thank all my teammates for carrying my old ass when I can't shoot straight.
Awesome. Well, Avian, it's been a pleasure talking to you as always, and congratulations again on a well-deserved victory, a well-deserved $10,000 grand prize, and of course, the Unified Collegiate Championship winners. Congrats to you, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
I'll bring back now my wonderful co-casters, and we will finish off the day. Man, John, John Carter, it's been...
Come on, man.
It's been great. It's been great. Any last things we got to say before we work on wrapping this up?
Well, I guess he did mention John and then fellow, so I guess I should probably go first. I mean, it's just it's more rock solid evidence that Converse is a force to be reckoned with. No matter what collegiate scene you are in, they are just absolutely a monster. But still, to NC State's credit, I know they even mentioned this during the interview yesterday. They were not expecting to get this far, so still being a finalist here in the biggest event Collegiate R6 has seen ever. I mean, that's still a pretty good bragging right. I gotta admit.
Carter, what about you?
I mean, it's Converse on top. Like, what else is there to say? I mean, we had NCSU as a solid challenger going into today. They showed they can contend with the best of them, even if, you know, they still suffer from some of those small mistakes they make, especially on Clubhouse. But Converse win. What else could we have expected? A good fight from Akron, a good fight from NCSU, but the Kings remain with the crowns on their heads.
All right, well, for a final time, we will pull up our bracket, take a look at how the entire Unified Collegiate Championship has played out, and there you see it, Converse 3-0, a clean win, a clean sweep in the best of 5 for all the marbles. So many teams, the top 16 teams in Collegiate, give or take a few, have made their way to this bracket and really put on quite a performance over the last few weeks. For the first time, reuniting all of the collegiate leagues, uniting the entire collegiate ecosystem. And personally, I could not be more happy with the result that we had, with just the incredible performances, the storylines that these teams were able to build over the last few months and the entire academic year. But before we send things out for the day, we're going to send things over to a special video talking about our good friend Connor CDAP Stapolonio. Take a listen.
He is Connor CDAP Stapolonio. One more best of 5 we got to get to before the grand finals, Connor, and I'm sorry your voice couldn't make it, but they did put up a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, as good of a fight as a 3-0 could be. Definitely not the expected result, but really well done by Purdue. They put on quite the show, and they seemed a little bit more prepared than NCSU, and they've punched their ticket all the way to the grand finals.
As there's a shield and there's some people behind it, he has no idea where he's getting shot from. He's stuck in the crossfire of all crossfires. He's stuck in a corner. He's boxed up, and he gets sent home by Hennessy's Vector, and try his best to stun away and confirm the location of IMAT, who now is tucking tail and running, trying to play the long con, trying to play the long game, and now has red pings to understand exactly where Cash is, deep inside the corner, and a headshot from the MPX, even though it's a pea shooter, will get the job done. Ice in the veins of IMAT leads to a 3-3 split half.
And for you, Connor, welcome back, and thank you very much for being with us.
I finally got to work with Jesse. We did it!
Yep, this is a team that you can tout as the people's champion, because they overcame adversity and everybody seems to be on their side as a good underdog Cinderella story.
Connor, anything to add?
Yeah, you want to succinctly, I would just say, pleasant surprise. 2 words. I think that this roster could potentially have failed, but they've been a breath of fresh air. I finally got to work with a Canadian, you know. It was nice.
Freaking right.
Even though you're on a box that's way taller than us, they even get eye level.
You're on a box too.
Only to make it even.
Of course, sending as much love to Connor and the NCSU boys as possible. They, obviously they've been through quite a hard time as of late. Connor, as we talked about yesterday, in the hospital, was in critical condition after a car accident. He's on the road to recovery now. It is going to be a long one. NC State and that entire, NCSU family, they are all going through this tough time together, trying to support Connor as best they can. So if you have it within you, like I said yesterday, quick call to action. If you want to, hop on Twitter, just, send at D1Taco, at CDAPS a message on Twitter, sending your love, sending your support. I know it will go a long way. At some point when those messages are looked at, they will make somebody smile. They will make someone's day. So to end on that final note, Connor has done so much for the collegiate community and, the entire Rainbow Six ecosystem. So we want to do the same for him as he works on his road to recovery. But that is going to end not only our broadcast for today, but the Rainbow Six Collegiate Championship and the Unified Collegiate Championship for the season as the academic year concludes. so does our collegiate programming for now. I want to thank you all for tuning in and supporting all of these collegiate teams along the way. Thank you, fellow. Thank you, Lynx. And a big thank you to all the production back in the studio. Of course, our observers, Nova and our wonderful Tango Mango down in the booth as always, just working away their magic and doing a whole bunch of nonsense. I want to thank them as well. So we hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Have a happy Mother's Day. Send a lot of love to your moms, and we'll see you next time. So long, everybody.